चेंज हो सकती है। बेसिकली क्या है कि ये आपका माइंडसेट दो तरह का एक है क्वेश्चनिंग माइंडसेट और एक है मैं इसमें बस अपनी ये जो माइंडसेट की बात है ये दिस इज बेसिकली मेक अप ऑफ and then he what he does is that any input comes, any kind of signal comes, he takes it in a manner which is positively analyzed, and then he looks into the possibility of happening things. So if I need to develop my mindset, I as a leader identify, I need to work on my mindset. So I take certain action to develop my mindset. मान लो मेरे को identify होता है. You don't have to take in the orientation हो जाता है आपका over a period of time of writing, reading and etc. So orientation होता है और listening anything, observing anything like orientation. Conscious effort रहा होगा मेरा. over a period of time. तो फिर उसमें क्या नेगेटिव फोर्सेस भी आते हैं पॉजिटिव फोर्सेस भी आते हैं इस वक्त हम ऑब्जर्व कर रहे हैं इंटरेक्ट कर रहे हैं बात कर रहे हैं पढ़ रहे हैं लिख रहे हैं देन ही डेवलप्स इट काइंड framework of mind. What you call his framework of work his philosophy. वो that is a mind. ये यूएस की नेवी है करीना हेरिंगटन ने जो है उन्होंने सेल्फ एजुकेशन ऑफ जॉर्ज वॉशिंगटन की ना ऐसे सेल्फ एजुकेशन ऑफ तो उसमें उन्होंने बोला है कि जैसे आपने कहा सही है कि वो रीड करते हैं बट पूरी बुक इतनी बुक है उसमें उन्होंने बताया कि स्ट्रैटेजी की उन्होंने कब कौन सी चीज करी तो सॉल्व प्रॉब्लम यहाँ से यहाँ पहुंच एक वक्त वो क्या देखता है मेरे पास पैसा पिक्चर गिवन सेक्टर ऑफ लाइफ ये एक किताब में देखते हो एयरपोर्ट में बुक ऑफ मीनिंग व्हाट इज द टाइटल बुक ऑफ मीनिंग and I visited the book of मीनिंग and then I found it is from the Euro of this university and he started working how figures and digits were developed over a period of time, how people were developed, then he came to the philosophy of that comes so that is a book of the title itself was a very questionable title which he picks up. Second, then the base किताब है philosophy पढ़ी है. It is mostly gets into the institutional way of thinking it, but then browsing through and then either living or getting strategically क्योंकि जिन लोगों को अगर मान लो मेरे को पढ़ने के लिए है पर्पस के लिए है तो अगर मेरे को मान लो मेरे को तो मैं curiosity based purpose then you link everything with that then strategy comes then time comes then मैंने देखा कि वो यहाँ से यहाँ पहुँचने के लिए अपना माइंड स्ट्रेटजी डेवलप करना है आपका क्लैरिटी हो then but this much very clear what you want एक मेरे मन में इधर से बना बना पैसे जानना तो चाहिए but you should then you have to or you recommend this part good so what I do is explore what I do फिर आया why then why is again important why what I do I start exploring but how is this skill? I एक्चुअली मास्टरी जो है थोड़ा सा मिस है
How is the skill? Now, after how here either you have the skill, or you acquire the skill, or you hire the skill. So, one here says the knowledge is higher. They have the purpose, there may not be any, but that let's they have to acquire.
आपको ऐसा नहीं लगता मास्टरी only about one subject?
Hello, testing. Can somebody confirm they are hearing our voice?
कई लोग छात्र को पहचानने में कई लोग सब्जेक्ट को पहचानने में mastery is not in terms of intensity of the knowledge of person or domain, but mastery is able to take this one. And he need not be expert in any area. He may be expert in one area, but the expert in one area may not be expert in another area. But it should be expert in this one.
अगर लीडरशिप के लिए भी तो मास्टरी रेलेवेंट होती है.
Mastery is little. Mastery is not very high. That component is not very important.
मैं अगर मास्टरी को एट्रीब्यूट मान लूँ मास्टरी ऑफ डेलीगेशन, अगर मैं how you delegate your task, the leader has a mastery in delegating the task.
Mastery is a kind of a what you are talking about skill. This is on क्या कर सकते हैं. ये this is ये ब्रेक के बाद ये लॉन्ग ये वो कहते हैं ना बड़ी रेस का बोल रहा है ये छोटी रेस का बोल रहा है ये इस बार वो ये है you are able to discern
तो हाई लेवल पे मास्टरी
वो discern की ability to discern मुझे क्यों पिक कर लें मुझे ये डिलीवर करेगा because they are studied he may not know he has that जैसे कोई बात करता है मुझे ये आदमी चाहिए और मेरा पर्पस क्या है ये
इसको कैसे डिफाइन करते हैं सर कि ये फिर वो क्या पैरामीटर है?
वो पैरामीटर है
आप क्या उसकी बात
वो पैरामीटर ये जैसे आप कोई बात करता है उसकी बात से पता चलता है
वो डीप जाने का एटीट्यूड
नहीं उसके लेवल से दूसरा दो चीजें करते हैं खाली बात करने के लिए इंटरेस्ट करने के लिए उसके लिए होता है कि जस्ट लाइक दैट और जैसे ही आपको उसकी ऑनेस्टी का पता चलता है और उसकी नॉलेज का कुछ कम भी हेल्प होती है नहीं विल गेट फर्स्ट एग्जांपल फर्स्ट असेसमेंट इज ऑनेस्टी ऑफ पर्सन honesty of the person. Is he doing it for the sake of influencing or talking or gaining something? Or is doing just because he feels like that? So वो वहाँ discerning ability होनी चाहिए इसकी लीडर का सबसे बड़ा discerning ability में महात्मा गांधी ने 10 लोगों के साथ में लिया सर्वोदय को लिया उसको देखा उसको लिया सबसे बड़ा लीडर जो बना है वर्ल्ड में he created 100 ऐसा तो नहीं होता ऐसे यहाँ से फिर तो नहीं होगा ना नीचे कोई ग्रो नहीं करता महात्मा गांधी के नीचे सभी ग्रो कोई भी है हाँ पर ये ऊपर जाएगा नीचे ग्रो करता या फिर इसकी लेंथ को करके कोई भी एक ऐसा नाम बताइए जो महात्मा गांधी था और डब रहेगा ये भी एक एकदम इवन लोएस्ट एक आदमी आया था उसने कहा मैं करना चाहता हूँ एजुकेशन ऑफ एडल्ट्स तो महात्मा ने क्या कहा अच्छा तुम कल तुम लेक्चर साफ कर फिर उसने देखे वही एडल्ट होम एडल्ट एजुकेशन जो करे इस लेवल के लोग then you can teach them to grow connect. He empowered the men to how to deal with the situation which you are doing. So ये leadership की quality है. Leadership की quality क्या है? वो threatened नहीं करना. Many people feel threatened. सारे एट्रीब्यूट्स तो बहुत मेरा फोकस इस एक एट्रीब्यूट पे ज्यादा है और प्राइमरी अच्छी चल रही है
मेरा भी
It
focus
is
ज्यादा
not
है
static. It is very dynamic.
मेरा भी फोकस ज्यादा है मार्क्स पे है कि उनकी मार्क्स की क्वेश्चन कैसा है
Mastery quotient होने के लिए mastery of discerning, mastery of taking decisions,
Sir.
mastery of ये
That is also
ये
mastery.
ये
That is also
मानते हैं ability और वो भी चेंज होती रहती है और वे मेजर होते हैं बट पर्पस ये है आपसे बात कर रहा हूँ
पहले एक बार मैं कर देता हूँ, फिर आप
there's something might emerge new or something maybe there हमारे कॉन्फ्रेंस के अंदर कॉन्फ्रेंस होती है
Okay, good morning, friends. Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the session. Today, we are very pleased to have Rahul Agarwal ji. He has been a great supporter of our Learning 321 initiatives, and he has been contributing his expertise. So, today we are focusing on neuroscience as the its impact on as emotional well-being and other things, on how this science it can add to a better understanding of how we learn and those related issues. So again, good morning and welcome all of you. Now I request Professor M. Pant to give his initial remarks. Thank you.
So, a very good morning to all of you, and we have a very small attendance here, but this topic is very important, and we have really Rahul has agreed to spend so much time figuring it out and sharing these things about it. And Rahul himself is an engineer. He has done a lot of work in all leading edge things. He's worked with HCL, Hughes, CDOT, etc., and now has been fascinated with neuroscience and is working on this. I will share my own thing because I'm also deeply interested in this subject and I have a long time association with this subject. It has become even more interesting now that I have some of these problems in walking, which is a neuro problem. Actually, I have no physical problem with respect to any of my bodies, etc. But it is something which is this thing. So I have now a very personal interest in this field. But to give you an idea of this field, and I fortunately met Suresh Chandra brought along a colleague of Allahabad University who's also done physics and so on. And I try to tell people that my interest now is on physics of living systems. So far, we talked about physics of dead systems, electrons, protons, neutrons, etc. That is the physics that we studied, and it was easy to study. But the moment we talk about living system, physics become very, very complicated, interesting, and so on and so forth. And that is to me the frontier. So when we were young, when I was in school, nuclear had been done. The nuclear bombs had been exploded, nuclear power was there, Atomic Energy Commission existed, and so on and so forth. So nuclear was a known thing. The new thing that happened when we were in school was the space. And the satellite, the first Russian satellite was launched in 1957, and we were all talking of the space as the next frontier. Space is also pretty much now understood. We also realize it is not a small thing, it is much bigger, and you will never reach the edge of space, etc. But at that time, space was the next frontier. Today, the mind is the next frontier, the brain is the next frontier, and this is why it is the most exciting topic. So, when you look at the frontiers of knowledge and research, everybody, psychologists, cognitive, social, behavior, everybody is working on that. So far, we didn't have much idea of the physics of the brain. So brain was considered something esoteric, etc., and people just come between soul and brain and this and that, and all kinds of things were there. The first known and well accepted attempts at understanding the brain were done by Hodgkin and Huxley. So Andrew Huxley comes from the famous Huxley family of Julian Huxley, Aldous Huxley, Thomas Huxley. Thomas Huxley, in fact, was the grand old man who was a colleague of Darwin. He was called Darwin's bulldog because Darwin apparently was a soft-spoken person who Thomas Huxley would argue on his behalf wherever Darwin was being opposed, so he was called Darwin's bulldog. Now, these Hodgkin and Huxley were the first ones to say that the brain is a body which works on electrical impulses, and they had traced much of the process of the brain to sodium and potassium channels, and therefore they had treated these as physics things with capacitance, etc., wrote down the equations, second order differential equations, which are called the Hodgkin-Huxley equation, around 1952, to talk about nerve pulse propagation in the brain. They didn't have any real stuff, but imagine that this is the capacitance, this is the inductance, this is this thing, so if this is the voltage, this would happen. And by that time, people had understood the structure of the neurons and axons and synaptic junctions and action potential, and all this is basically physics. 1962 or so, they actually won the Nobel Prize for medicine for their discovery. So that's what I find. So the field is pretty old. For a long time, there wasn't much progress because there was no way of knowing what is going on in the brain. See, for the heart, there was ECG. For the brain, the best they had was something called EEG, electroencephalogram, which also talked about the same electrical pulses, but didn't tell you much about what's happening. In recent times, progress has happened because of something called MRI. Again, thanks to a physicist, nuclear spin was discovered, nuclear spin resonance was discovered, and the medical profession said that we can put somebody inside the scanner and then we can know a lot about what's happening. So MRI is the one which gave this push to really knowing what's going on in the brain. In fact, they call it fMRI, which is functional magnetic resonance imaging, and they would do that. Then how so you can't still see exactly what is. So we still don't know what is the difference in the brain of a person who knows, let us say, Ohm's law, and one who doesn't know. So we can't say what is the difference in the brain of these two people, or anything that you know and don't know. But for example, in the software, you can see that. You can say this software can do this, but this won't be able to do this, etc., etc. So that is where I think it is headed. But in fMRI, they have been able to figure out what regions of the brain get active when certain things are done. And I'm sure Rahul is going to talk about some of these things, hippocampus, and different organs. So we've now begun to have a better understanding. MRI is still quite difficult because it was huge magnets, this, that, whatever. The hope is that with room temperature superconductivity, and he just pointed out about high temperature superconductivity as well. So this is something which physicists are doing. Today, superconductivity to run those magnets has to have temperature close to absolute zero. The idea is if you can find materials which become superconductors at room temperature, then it would be a great thing. A few years ago, people found things which could become superconductors at room temperature, but it required very high pressure. So the hunt now is for superconducting materials at room temperature and ambient pressure, so a modest pressure. When that happens, MRI will become even more interesting. And there's another thing on which work is going on, is quantum sensors. So they're trying to look at, and optimists have this idea that instead of these huge MRI machines, you will have smaller MRI machines, easier and more accessible. So we will take more and more brain scans and try to interpret them so we tend to move on. So the is that if we want to really understand how the brain works, and it involves, today, for example, you look at, there's a whole series of things called complexity theory. So there's a Institute of Complexity in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where all kinds of physicists, Nobel laureates are working on complex systems, because physicists, they believe that complexity is the universal framework in which we can look at social problems, emotional problems, medical problems, and so on and so forth. So this is where the whole thing is. Today's topic is even more interesting because we wanted to focus on the emotional aspects. That becomes even more interesting, and they've done scans. So there's a whole paper, talk, etc., on the MRIs of people in love. So when you're in love, you're out of love, you've been rejected, you've been, and they published nice papers on that, and so on and so forth. The hope is that as we get to know more and more about this, we will be able to first cure ailments. So right now, for example, you must have heard that Elon Musk has been allowed permission to put his chips into human brains, and is going to do that. And that is going to be used initially for people who are suffering from serious injuries. And that is the way. But in future, we can imagine that those chips will be able to be used to share knowledge, built-in capabilities, etc., etc. So I don't want to say too much before Rahul comes in, but I will share, for example, this thing which I began with my, and this. So you probably know that as people age, there is Alzheimer, dementia, Parkinson, and so on. And these are all basically neurological disorders. And I've had some difficulty in my movement, etc., and therefore study this more carefully. So what happens is that eventually, like when you know in a robo or in any other machine, basically we have sensors and actuators. Now sensors sense the environment, actuators get your motors moving. And what happens now is that this thing becomes affected to some extent. Now, either your sensors can get affected, so simply because by not being able to see, not being able to hear, not being able to do this, and we normally talk about 5 senses, right? But there is another many more senses, but very important 6 sense is the sense of balance, or proprioception. Now, when you are fine, it is all right, but otherwise, you to and in seriously affected people, they can't even stand. It's called vestibular kind of a thing. And when this gets affected, obviously your problem. What is very interesting is, and why the brain is interesting, is that so far the model was of the brain as a fixed thing, and we often compared it with a computer. But what recent studies have shown is something called neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. So what they are saying is the brain is not a fixed thing. So it may have deteriorated, but you can put it back. And those of you who are interested, Norman Doidge is the person who has talked about this. He's a doctor. He's also written popular books. The brain that heals itself, the brain that changes itself, and so on. So actually, what is very interesting is that, as I said earlier, when we learn something, the actual physical brain also changes. In a computer, this doesn't happen. Whatever you solve on a computer, the computer hardware remains the same. Computer solve the problem in the software and application. But the human brain actually changes. So the brain can. Earlier, it was thought that this happens in the initial stages, and there are critical stages. So that's why in education, for example, we say there are critical stages. If he doesn't learn music at this stage, he will never be able to learn music. If he doesn't learn language at this stage, he will never be able to learn it. This was the critical stages theory. Today, they found that you could actually train the brain for anything. And what has been most remarkable is that people who have suffered and lost some faculty, the other part of the brain was able. So now, as Rahul will show, we said this part is related with vision, this part is related with movement, this part is related with sense. But if a certain part gets damaged in an accident or decay or whatever, that part of the brain is able to take over. See, like in an organization, if a certain person is not available, sometimes other people can pitch in and take over that. This is why the brain has become even more exciting. That and people have done this now. Their experiments have been done, research papers have been done, and so on. So it's the most exciting field today, and it's a field which combines all these kind of things. And obviously, everything is all up. And then we go on to things like consciousness and so on and so forth. There's a lot of pseudoscience also going on. So there are people who will do inner engineering of Sadhguru, and somebody will do Deepak Chopra or something, and so on and so forth. So that is also going, and it's a very common phrase now to say quantum healing and so on, because but we should forget that. But there is a huge amount of progress and interest and genuine possibility. Huh? Maybe. So anyway, I think with this we'll let Rahul begin. I'll just say, wanted to say was that this is a very exciting thing. Even if you have not heard of it, you will hear more and more of it. And eventually now you've already seen AI progress to the level of artificial general intelligence. And we will therefore be able to see this working. So some people get very afraid of this, that what will happen, etc., and so on and so forth. But to all those people who are afraid of these things, I talk about the simple thing, and fortunately we have a few years. When I wear a pair of spectacles, am I being dehumanized or augmented? So I said this very often. See, when I was in school, if somebody had put this rule that no, anything artificial is not allowed in class, and I was not allowed to wear spectacles, I would not be able to do anything. I wear spectacles and I come first. Now, same thing. So if I use technology and I can do better than what I can do without technology, why would I not use it? Whether it is a chip in the brain or it is an external thing or whatever is a matter of detail. Even today, for example, for many things you don't need to use spectacles. You can get surgery done and you can get rectification. If you have a hearing problem, you have a cochlear implant and you can do that. If you have a heart problem, you have a pacemaker. Why can't I have a chip called a brain maker and use that to improve my brain and do whatever I need? So anyway, on that trip, we should request Rahul to initiate us into this glorious science of neuroscience and especially emotion. I've personally been taking a lot of interest nowadays in dreams, because dreams is an extension of our mind working in a certain other set of conditions. And right from Freud, people have been interested in dreams. And as a person who would want them to become better learners, etc., maybe what they see in their dreams is a very important part. So I am very seriously nowadays going back to Freud's book and everything about dreams to see how I can interpret dreams. Because the beauty of dreams is what you see in your dream is an extremely coded form of this thing. So when you like to do this coding, uncoding, compression, decompression, etc., that is what dreams are. You're looking at something, some issue, maybe your boss, but you're seeing an animal. You have to interpret that this animal actually represents your boss or your colleague or whatever. So on. So that is another interesting area. So in terms of emotion, this thing, and eventually we will come on to consciousness. What is most important is, can we know enough so that we can direct our thinking in the way that we want? So, for example, in dreaming, there is a phrase called lucid dreaming. That is when you've consciously been able to dream about what you wanted to dream. So anyway, it's a very exciting area to me. हाँ?
वो क्या है या वो कौन है जो ये देख रहा है कि सपना चल रहा है?
Correct. नहीं, and dream within dream ये बहुत problem वो होता है. So anyway, good point to get started.
Thank you, sir. Good morning to all of you.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning once again. Uh, so, starting with this interesting topic, just like to quickly talk about myself, Rahul, and I have been basically, as once I mentioned, I'm basically from technology background, done computer science, engineering, computer science, and followed by technology management. Uh, Worked with software development for close to 30 years, and post that I have been involved with learning and development closely. So, based on Pansar's guidance, I got into analysis of neuroscience about a year back, and I found this field to be very exciting. So, just sharing something, what I have learned, collected the information from various sources, and so starting with what is emotional brain. So there's a movie Return to Me, the Bollywood movie, which was released in 2000. And what this movie is about, a girl called Grace, and she receives a heart transplant from another girl called Lisa, who was dying because of cancer. And she receives that heart transplant. And post that, she falls in love with Bob, who happened to be her husband. So because of her transplant, this transition happened. This movie is all about that. So there was a Hindi remake also of this in Bollywood that's called Dil Mein Jisse Apna Kya. I have not seen this movie, but I have heard about its story. So, so this is the kind of notion which we have about Dil. So we have heard about Dil Da Mamla, which is a famous song by Gurdas Mann. But point is, what is this Dil? ये दिल हमारी बॉडी में होता कहाँ है? Any thoughts? So actually, this dil is all in our brain. It's not this heart which we talk about. So this dil is actually our brain only, which is basically what we call as emotional brain.
But it sends signal to your heart.
Right.
Then start pumping.
So whatever feelings, what we feel is that mind, not something which is basically sensed by heart. It's driven by your brain. So human brain is at the center of learning, knowledge, memories, intelligence, but at the same time it is the center of emotions, senses, consciousness, and body control as well. So the question comes, how emotions occur? And that's where we come to the field of what neuroscience of emotions. So today we will talk in the first part what is the neuroscience behind these emotions, and also since we are pursuing our interest towards education, so what's the relationship between emotions and the learning, and how by being aware of how emotions occur, we can improve our learning processes. So what is neuroscience? It's a study of human brain through observation of the structure and function of the nervous system. So we try to understand through observation. We try to understand it through biological processes. ब्रेन में क्या क्या हो रहा है इसकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग करके we'll try to build better understanding of how the brain works and its different components. It's a subject of intense study and research due to potential applications towards human health and advancement. So in general, हमारी health को एक brain का क्या impact है? That's basically a significant one, and that's what can help us in understanding through neuroscience.
So I want to make a comment here. ये जो है ना neuroscience, that word is more appropriate for the neurons and the neural network. All organisms don't have a brain. brain, बड़ा interesting है. There are so many life forms which sense, feel, do this. It's only the neural network. A headquartered brain is a stage in evolution.
Right.
तो starfish हैं, ये हैं, octopus हैं, इन सब के अंदर कोई brain नहीं होता है.
जी.
So neuroscience strictly is the study of neural networks, biological neural networks, not जो mathematical neural networks बता रहे हैं.
जी जी.
And उसके अंदर ब्रेन साइंस will be specialized area जहाँ ब्रेन भी आ गया है. नहीं तो बहुत सारे लोग बिना ब्रेन के भी, कुछ इंसान भी बिना ब्रेन के काम करते हैं, वो बात अलग है. But so I think in your future presentation, don't emphasize the human brain.
Right.
Emphasize the neural networks, the biological neural networks.
Sure.
Right. That's all I wanted to suggest.
So, thanks for your suggestion, sir. So, there's a lot of study and research work which is ongoing in this field, and there's already a international level initiative which is spanning across different countries. Of course, India is not currently part of that initiative, but there's a lot of work which is already happening. Towards the end of this presentation, we'll talk about that as well. So first half, we'll talk about emotion, science, neuroscience of emotion, and second half, we'll talk how we can, what are the efforts being spent in terms of augmenting brain. So what are the different technologies being developed in that area? Some of the basics about that, and here we'll talk more about what is happening in India. So, based upon my interest, and also recently I got a chance to visit a place called Brain Museum in Nimhans, Bangalore. It's a kind of a only brain museum in India. And later on, when I studied further, I found it's probably one of the few ones in the whole world as well. So what they have is something, a collection of different conditions, maybe with some different type of kind of diseases, or maybe which have met some accident or something like that. So, in fact, there is a scientist who is also kind of taking you through a tour, and they explain you different body parts and brain parts. You can take the brain also in your hand. There's a kind of a real brain which is there, and not only brain, some other parts like heart, lungs, etc. Those are there for demo, and you can take them and they get a feeling of that, including the nervous, complete spinal cord. So all that is there, and if you are interested in this field, I would strongly recommend you to have a visit to this place. But there is a very limited window in which this museum is open. It's only open for 2 hours in a week, so you have to check the timings. So brain complexity, as Sir was mentioning, it is one of the most complex objects. It is estimated that it has about 100 billion neurons, and each neuron is connected to 10,000 other neurons. So the kind of connections it is in terms of trillions. It's a kind of complexity which you can think in terms of the whole universe. That's a kind of number of planets, number of solar systems, galaxies, etc. That's a kind of that kind of complexity is there in our brain. So, as we were talking, so different species also have brains, and these brains are of different sizes. Yes, sir.
आपने कहा कि 10 times more connections हैं, तो क्या अभी तक कोई ऐसा आइडिया है कि एक पानी की टंकी और 10 पाइप जुड़े हुए हैं, तो उन पाइप में भी कुछ हो रहा होता है या खाली वो पानी ले जा रहे हैं?
No, those are basically जैसे पानी अब जा रहा है तो फ्लो के लिए है वो. So similarly जो connections हैं, those are basically for flow of electrical charges.
हाँ, मैं वही पूछना चाह रहा हूँ कि क्या उनके अंदर भी कुछ हो रहा होता है?
Right.
ले जा रहा है?
जो भी हम सोच रहे हैं, जो भी हमारा जो कनेक्शन है, वो इलेक्ट्रिकल इम्पल्सेस के थ्रू होता है. इलेक्ट्रिकल इम्पल्सेस आर बीइंग पास थ्रू दिस. So जो connections हैं उनके, those are acting as a conduit.
Only conduit.
Mostly conduit.
नहीं, आप ऐसा है कि since these are electrical pulses, obviously there are electrons which are flowing through that. So electrons are flowing through those axons. The axons have electrical properties like capacitance, inductance, etc. Okay. And therefore, it is something from this is how does an electric current flow? Basically, we cannot have.
So, Malak, it's like, sorry.
जो है कि जैसे प्रोफेसर शुरू की फॉर एग्जांपल वन ऑफ द मेन क्वेश्चंस इज कि एक एक्शन हो गया एक्शन है the other aspect that's called the synapse and synaptic junction. I have a feeling that sooner or later they will come up with the concept of quantum tunneling from one part to the other. That is how the thing is going. अभी वो लोग कहते हैं बीच में fluid है, synaptic fluid that's an idea, but sooner or later it will come to the idea that there is quantum tunneling and that is going to be able to go across. So we don't know those parts, but that is the way it would be.
So, sir, it is like this: कि each neuron has some processing, and these neurons are interconnected. जैसे computers आपके connected हैं, वैसे ही मतलब this is a kind of network of computers you can say. Each neuron is acting as is doing a small role, very small role in terms of a computer, but there is some role being played by each neuron, and each neurons are connected to each other.
And I think there are 5 kind of brain waves, alpha, beta, theta, etc. So the generation also helps here in different region, because there are some region of the brain which are related to say like retention, memory, some are with emotions, something like that. So all these neurons, depending on means their feature, generate these signals.
Wave means signals.
Brain waves. There are 5 kind of brain waves which have different frequency of
Butter was 5.
So we will cover that. So this is the brain size in terms of weight, and you can see that humans are 30-50 grams, which is for males. For females, it is slightly lower, but this clearly indicates brain size is not actually the key factor of intelligence. So, in terms of neurons, again, elephants have much more number of neurons than humans. As per the current estimates, humans have around 86 billion neurons, and but just neurons is not sufficient. What is another factor is basically the how many neurons you have in your cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex is basically the upper part of the brain, which is basically taking care of all the intelligent work, say making decisions, planning, learning. All that is basically taken care by the cerebral cortex. And humans are one of the topmost in terms of number of neurons in the cerebral cortex.
No, you said elephant has more number of neurons.
Yes.
And is it because of the general saying that they are able to sense what is happening, what is the secure problem?
Because of the brain size.
Is it that more neurons make them beyond the space observation, beyond the space observation?
So basically, brain size is also dependent upon the body size. जितनी बड़ी बॉडी है उतना ही बड़ा उसका ब्रेन होगा, बट इट डजंट मीन कि उसकी इंटेलिजेंस भी उसी प्रोपोर्शन में है. So intelligence is more governed by the how much space you have in your cerebral cortex.
Are they active or passive neurons?
I haven't heard of any such concept, but maybe. But the point is that the brain is basically controlling the whole body. The bigger body is there, probably it needs more mass to kind of control the rest of the body. So today we are going to focus more on the human brain, and these are the different parts of the human brain. Brain stem is basically the lowest part, which is directly connected to your spinal cord, and it takes care of all the things which happen in an autopilot mode, like cardiac activities, respiratory functions, digestion, sleep. All these are something which we don't have to control. These keep on happening on their own. Then this low part, this is basically called cerebellum, and it's basically taking care of the balance. Sir, जो भी बता रहे थे कि मेरा मतलब there are some people who are having finding difficulty in kind of standing or balancing. That's basically because of this part. So again, this is also more of a kind of autopilot mode, but basically takes care of the controlling the muscles and ensuring that they remain balanced. Then this middle part, this is basically our emotional center. This is the part where we get sensations, instinctual behavior, feelings, emotions, and the energy. So this middle part is taking care of all our fears, happiness, etc. That's basically taking care of our feelings. And the upper part, which is the biggest part, is almost 80% of the brain. That is your cerebral cortex, which is taking care of the learning, reasoning, decision making, speech, and integrating whatever experiences which we have. So that is basically the topmost part of our brain, right from forehead to back. So it is a huge part of the brain which is dedicated to this. And that's what I was saying. The number of neurons in this part is what brings us the intelligence.
Now you're shown in two colors, the upper brain. How to distinguish these two colors?
These different parts
These two colors, these are two different parts.
in this cortex.
Yeah. In
यहाँ पे
this cortex.
this is basically the this is the basically prefrontal cortex. यहाँ मतलब अभी यहाँ पे जितने parts हम अभी यहाँ देखे हुए हैं, इनमें भी there are some parts which are handled here. जैसे front part जो है, that is basically taking care of the decision making. Planning and decision making happens over here. Learning is somewhere here. This part is basically more of a vision.
Learning and application part comes there.
Right. So उनको अलग-अलग कलर से दिखाया गया है, just to kind of मतलब उसके अलग-अलग मल्टी sections. So it's a complex system, and to simplify it, there is a simpler model of brain which is called triune brain. It's a three function here. So here यहाँ पे हमने neocortex इसको कहा. Then the middle part is basically a limbic system, and the lower part is your reptilian brain.
Where does the memory sits?
हाँ जी.
Where does the memory sits?
Memory is spread across the whole.
Yeah?
Memory is not a space. कोई specific part नहीं.
Flexible vary, or where is there? It's because immediately when the signal you learn something, there is certain already existing information base.
Right.
There is interaction between them. You
Right.
question or you reject.
So brain में कोई special part नहीं है.
There is a possibility, just bring up a computer memory system. There must be something where memory system of everything interact with the existing signals coming to this. Where does it stand?
So we will cover that.
sit.
But there is no, जैसे कंप्यूटर में हमारी ये पूरा रैम एरिया है या हमारा रॉम एरिया है या बेसिकली फ्लैश है समथिंग, उस तरह का एक स्पेसिफिक लोकेशन
Static नहीं है. So every portion has some kind of this.
So these are different parts, and each part has its own
Have
memory,
its own process.
memory system.
It's a fluid kind of flexible system.
I wouldn't call it as a flexible, but each part जो different parts को handle कर रहे हैं, तो उनके अपने memory systems हैं. So probably this will get answered as we move forward.
Your memory leads to the formation of habits.
Right.
Because the habit is formed that you can drive and you can start doing thinking and listening and everything.
Right. So that is basically what
limbic
sir was saying,
system-
neuroplasticity.
Limbic system to a great extent get communicated or controlled by the habit formation.
Right. So that is basically
But I think
neuroplasticity.
the important point is that the latest thinking
Yeah.
is that this is not an acceptable model. This model became very popular because a very popular writer, Carl Sagan, promoted this model, and he was very good communicator. So people felt today they are saying it is all connected and it's all very complex.
दिस इज सिंपलर मॉडल, दिस इज सिंप्लीफाइड मॉडल. जैसे किसी भी चीज को समझाने के लिए हम एक सिंप्लीफाइड सा मॉडल बना लेते हैं. सो दिस इज जस्ट दैट मॉडल.
It got popular at that point of time, but future may, as people get able to explain more complexity, they will stop talking about the triune brain. Because the brain is one, and it's a very complex thing.
So people like us who are coming from a different background, हमको इतना नहीं पता, उनको explain करने के लिए they are using this so that we can grasp the basically overall concepts of neuroscience. So the reptilian brain, which is the lowermost part, it is taking care, or it's also called brain stem or motor brain. This function layer of brain is survival instinct, coping with stress. कोई भी अगर हमारे को कोई challenge आता है, then it is directly handled by this part of the brain. It does all the regulatory stuff. For example, on sensing body temperature change, it causes you to sweat or shiver. Or on sensing that the handles touch something hot, it will ask you to kind of withdraw. So the survival state represents the primal brain and asks the question, am I safe? So only way you can survive is that you soothe the survival state is through creation of safety. So if I am safe, then only this state will.
When you say that feeling cold or hot and other things, you say that sensing body temperature, which you are saying.
Yes.
Body temperature is sensed through the skin and other thing. Its signal goes to the brain.
Brain.
And then brain reacts whether it's heat or other.
Right. So there is a complete nervous system.
The sensor is whole body.
Right. So there are sensors spread across the whole body, which is basically part of the nervous system. And through our
from the feet to the
through our spinal cord, it reaches
Spinal-
brain,
spinal
and brain
cord to brain.
instructs कि मतलब retract लो.
I think nearest part to spinal cord is this one.
Right. This is just on top of spinal cord.
Yeah.
Nearest, जिससे ऊपर जाके वहाँ पे ऊपर, because ऊपर वाला जो part है, it takes time to kind of travel there, because काफी ज़्यादा neurons को cross करना पड़ेगा, and वहाँ पे processing time भी ज़्यादा होता है. But this is just on top of your spinal cord, and immediately वहाँ से reaction होता है, it gets disrupted.
अभी फांसी देते हैं कि फट से टूट जाए और आपका सारा thinking खत्म कर देता है.
So limbic system is basically the middle part, and this is called also the mammalian brain or intuitive brain. This layer is our connection center, emotions, receptive faculties, attachments, fear, arousal, anxiety. So all that feelings or emotions basically are handled in this limbic part, or which is also called the mammalian brain. It is important for social relationships, parental care, bonding, and empathy. This brain state represents mid-level functionality and asks the question, am I loved? Basically, if I am cared, that gives me the comfort. The only way to soothe and upset an emotion state is through connection.
Yeah, this intuitive system also links to the telepathy kind of a thing.
So telepathy is basically brain waves. We will talk about that as well as we move forward. So telepathy is basically
Because the portion is intuition. It starts with the intuition and
Intuition.
links with the.
So some people have tried to, especially the people have tried to associate it with brain waves, but still it is considered to be a neuroscience. Sorry, a pseudoscience. Telepathy is still a proven phenomenon, and we still don't have a kind of telepathy. Neocortex, as I was saying, is basically the thinking part of the brain on top, and it's basically also called the human brain. Obviously, whole is human brain, but just to differentiate between reptile and mammalians, it is mentioned as human brain. The topmost layer involved with long-term planning, decision-making, emotional regulation, reasoning, and rational thinking. So this is basically the executive control, and it always asks what is there in this experience to learn for me. So it is always looking for learning and making better decisions. So what could be better for me? So for a balanced behavior, these three function layers have to work in cohesion. And prefrontal cortex, so जो brain का हमारा जो forehead के पीछे immediately forehead के पीछे वाला part है, that's basically called the prefrontal cortex, and that takes care of the executive control of the whole brain.
Yeah, go back to earlier slide.
Again, sir.
Rational thinking की बात कर रहे हैं.
जी.
Reasoning, rational thinking, and it gets developed through the process of learning.
Right. So it basically
What
what
the process of learning is little weak, you find that system doesn't work effectively.
Right.
So rational thinking or remote reasoning part. Reasoning part is developed, being developed through the process of input viewing through the education process or any information process.
based upon my previous
That's why we
experiences.
often say that rational thinking is little less, or his logic is very weak. That sort of.
So basically, rational thinking is
It doesn't happen automatically. It happens through the process of which over a period of time.
You have experiences.
Circulated within the brain.
you have experiences, you have logic, you have emotional connect with different things. So you have to put together to everything and then make a holistic picture. That's basically what is your rational thinking.
The level of reasonable thinking, reasonable thinking regulation happens automatic, but it will take with the education process.
Can I move forward? So in absence of sufficient control by cortex, जो हमारा cortex है front part का, if we don't have sufficient control by the cortex, we will the lower layers will try to hijack our body, and they will kind of try to do some kind of funny actions. So like in an airplane that is experiencing turbulence, travelers freak and panic as reptilian brain takes over. So अगर हमें डर लगने लगता है and we are not able to think rationally in that moment, then probably people will start behaving in a different way. When we are under stress, we make stupid impulsive decisions that seem brilliant at that time. All that is basically because my emotional part becomes more powerful than the rational part. And when we are hungry, there will be a tendency to go lenient on morals. So all these are situations where the rational part of the brain is not able to have the right control on the lower layers. So this is a hand model, just to kind of if you want to have in your hand, if you open like this, so this front part of the finger is kind of a cortex. Sorry, this front part of this is basically your limbic system, and this part, which is basically the back of your hand, this is basically your cortex, and lower part is your brainstem. So if you put together these, that becomes your brain. So limbic system आपका अंदर मुट्ठी के अंदर चला गया, ये ऊपर बाहर जो है आपके ये cortex है, and ये आपका नीचे जो है, that's basically your brainstem. So very easy to kind of get a I'll remember this.
Tea is ready. Can we have 10-15 minutes break?
Or just 10 minutes.
ठीक है. हाँ, मैं बता. Please continue.
ये break कर लें?
After 5-10 minutes.
So nervous system is basically comprising of basically the communication network of our body. It includes brain, spinal cord, and a complex network of nerves. So brain is what controls all the body's functions. So as I was saying, nervous system is brain, spinal cord, and इस तरह से आपकी पूरी body में हमारे nerves रहते हैं. So all this is put together is the nervous system that basically controls the body.
Is the lymphatic thing also involved in all these things?
Sorry?
Lymphatic system,
Limbs.
lymph.
LYNPH.
LYNPH.
I'm sorry, I'm not in a position to comment on that.
And there are glands and lymph nodes are there. So do they have also some role to play in this nervous system, or that is entirely different altogether?
So there are certain glands which basically produce some kind of chemicals which help in body functions. So which these chemicals get secreted in separate situations, and that is basically governed by the brain. Brain asks कौन सी
So those are entirely different.
right.
But there is a whole lot of thinking that guts में there are something which are like that's why gut feeling expression आया है लेकिन biologically मैंने देखा कि gut के अंदर कुछ चीजें हैं कि in fact इन्होंने वो कि went straight to the brain but we all know I mean refer to later कि spinal cord है कि brain तक जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. So brain is a very highly evolved structure but a lot of things in terms of reflex action and stuff. So it's the neurons which are important and then messaging is there. Brain is a centralized headquarters for something in a sense which has advantages, disadvantages. तो gut में भी है अभी लोगों का निकल खासकर ये जो एनिमल्स हैं स्टार्ट फिश ये वो बहुत सारे के अंदर वो उसी से हो जैसा कंप्लीट सिस्टम मतलब जैसा कहते हैं ना सेंसर भी है एक्चुएटर भी है न्यूरॉन भी वो काफी
Jellyfish, I see
Jellyfish.
no brain,
करेक्ट
but it is having certain abilities which
Exactly.
like brain. It is paper.
नहीं वही see it can sense, it can do, it can learn also.
It can learn, that is
It can
there,
learn.
it can learn.
उसने stripes बना के और ये करके पूरे experiment किया. तो issue वही है पड़ा है कि eventually from our background, if you know in physics, finally people have moved to something called the field. So आपका तो electromagnetic field चली हुई है, कोई specific magnet की बात नहीं कर रहे. तो ऐसे ही इन चीजों में भी ये होगा. Eventually निकलेगा कि वो बहुत जल्दी distributed है. लोकलाइज नहीं है सो लोकलाइज वर्सेस नॉन लोकलाइज का जो एक थॉट प्रोसेस है वो आएगा इनफैक्ट बहुत पहले एक एजुकेशन में कर्ट लेविन था उसने फील्ड थ्योरी ऑफ लर्निंग बनाई थी जिसमें कहा था कि लर्निंग डिपेंड्स ऑन द एनवायरनमेंट एंड पर्सन एटसेट्रा पर लोग उतने आगे तक गया नहीं पर कभी गूगल कर लेना फील्ड थ्योरी ऑफ लर्निंग है कर्ट लेविन की उसने बहुत पहले कहा तो होता है आइडिया में ऑब्जर्वेशन में एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन में और उसके रिकंसिलिएशन में टाइम लगता है सो दीज आइडियाज कीप ऑन प्रिवेलिंग
और म्युनिसिपैलिटी लेवल पे बहुत सारी चीजें हो जाती हैं पार्लियामेंट में जाने की जरूरत नहीं है.
So question comes, what are neurons? So neurons are the fundamental units of the brain and nervous system. So this is kind of a simplified picture of a neuron. It has a body which has a nucleus, and it has a lot of dendrites, which are basically the receivers. It is basically when it connects to the other neurons, it is basically receiving through these dendrites, and it has a long axon. The axon यहाँ पे थोड़ा छोटा है, it could be long also, and it can be even in terms of meters as well. And then it has some tail which is basically there to connect with other neurons.
There is one I wanted to highlight, optical myelin sheath. So the role of myelin is कि because I study mastery, so when knowledge or expertise initially happen कि हम कुछ चलाना सीख रहे होते हैं तो there are these videos कि वो ऐसे ऐसे करके neurons are connecting to each other and when it builds a connection that is first time learning. इसको हम बोलते हैं हम सीख रहे हैं and that is called connected. But जितने ये athletes हैं उसमें जब उनकी किसी चीज जो हम बोलते हैं प्रैक्टिस डेलिब्रेट प्रैक्टिस जैसे जैसे प्रैक्टिस बढ़ती जाती है एक्सपर्टीज बढ़ती जाती है तो हाउ इट हैपेंस इज कि दिस शीट प्रोवाइड एज ए कि उससे सिग्नल की जो क्वालिटी है वो लूज नहीं होती इट बिकम्स इट कनेक्ट्स फास्टर तो माइलिन शीट का रोल है इन टर्म्स ऑफ मास्टरी द स्ट्रॉन्गर इज द शीट द मोर एक्सपर्ट यू आर कि वो आपका एकदम फास्ट कनेक्शन होता है एंड इट डज नॉट लूज आउट ऑन द इलेक्ट्रिकल सिग्नल्स.
Yes, so it acts as a kind of insulator.
Insulator.
And the better insulator it becomes, the charges which are passing through, those become faster.
So make it to how to make it better is by practice. The more you practice, the sheet becomes more strong. Like neural network. Right?
So these are cells that act as sensors and motors. सर बताए थे कि sensors और actors की तरह से act करते हैं. And as sensors, they are responsible for receiving sensory input from the external world, and as actuators, they send motor commands to the muscles. So, for example, when the hand touches an object, then there will be a sensor which will basically get the information that I am touching a hot object, and there will be this information will be given to another neuron which will be taking care of giving the motor commands, and that's what is going to be the next one. So the communication from sensor neuron to the actuator neuron or the motor neuron, that is happening through a chemical called neurotransmitter. So what are neurotransmitter? Basically, these are chemicals which are passed between two neurons. So ये एक न्यूरॉन है, ये दूसरा न्यूरॉन है. इन दोनों के बीच में ये यहाँ पे connectivity है. And this connectivity is not a kind of a direct connectivity. There is some space between these two. This space is called synapse. So there is a possibility कि यहाँ से यहाँ तक जो communication जा रहा है, this is the sender one and this is the receiver one. So when the sender is sending something, there could be some loss over here, and if there is no proper connection, then whatever the sender is sending, that may kind of get completely lost. So basically, more absorption it can do, the signal will basically pass from the sender one to the actuator one. The action can be in terms of instructions. So depending upon what chemical, what is being passed on, the signal will be getting passed on. So, for example, tasty food may give a feeling of pleasure. So, this is a sensor which is basically getting a feeling of tasty food. And
neurotransmitters का कुछ chemicals है, उसका कुछ structure और कुछ मतलब इस तरह का different मतलब
neurotransmitter is a basically chemical. उसका it's a molecule. उसका structure जैसे molecular structure होगा वैसे ही.
नहीं मतलब कभी जैसे लैब में create करने की कोशिश या कुछ ऐसा मतलब है कि वो
I'm not aware that we can produce them ourselves, but definitely when we are talking about some medical conditions, उनके लिए जो medicines device की जाती हैं, there must be some ways of creating, because these are just chemicals. So artificially भी शायद उनको produce किया जा सकता है, but I'm not aware at this moment.
Yeah, what was your question?
neurotransmitter is a chemical. So it's suppose this deficiency is there, can it be supplemented with the
As he said,
or can it be
any chemical whose structure or composition we know can be created.
Right.
Now the cost of creating that may be so prohibitive that it may not be worthwhile, or it may be available easily. So that is.
So basically these are produced in the body itself. So
Yeah.
if we are finding ways to kind of produce them within our body, probably we may not
For
need.
example, for the four happiness hormones, we all know endorphin, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin बाजार में बिकता भी है, वो भी होता है. So the point is that once the chemistry is known, it is a solved problem. उसका ड्रग का दाम कितना आएगा ये आएगा वो डिटेल की बात आती है, but it is doable. The other thing that is more interesting is this is you can stimulate those transmitters. ये जो कह रहे हैं ना कि बार-बार करने से हो जाता है, वो बार-बार करने से बॉडी स्टिमुलेट हो जाती है, तो प्रोड्यूसिंग में then the thing becomes better and better. So जो हम लोग प्रैक्टिस की बात करते हैं, एक्सरसाइज की बात करते हैं, तो ये कहते हैं कि बॉडी itself is stimulated to produce those, so they're producing it anyway.
So we just quickly close the discussion about neurotransmitters and then probably we'll break for a tea.
Right, continue.
So we, as Sir was just mentioned, like, there are different neurotransmitters which are called feel good neurotransmitters, dopamine, endorphin, oxytocin, serotonin. I think you would have heard about few of them. Dopamine is basically the signal for pleasure. It plays a crucial role in motivation. It signals that there is a pleasure, and because of that, it motivates us to take action in that direction. So when we get some good food or a sale or bonus or achievement, so so basically these are different situations. Serotonin is basically chemical for self-pride. When you are basically asserting yourself, or when you get into kind of a position of advantage, then that's the kind of happiness which you get. And so when you have done something good, or you are being kind of acknowledged or being appreciated in a social environment, or you are going ahead of others, or you kind of flaunt your phone against someone else's phone. So these are situations when you get pleasure, and that's basically because of good serotonin. Oxytocin is basically a pleasure for social togetherness. So it plays a role in social bonding, reducing fear, anxiety. So basically, as brain is basically looking for safe environment, and for that it always looks for like I can have a kind of a social connect with people, and that's what uh, helps oxytocin. So it boosts mood. You have when you have connect with people, when you are with people, or a love from a child which gets from his mother, or maybe some people look for that in social media as well. Endorphin is basically a chemical which helps in performing extreme effort. So uh, because of this, we can put extreme effort and don't feel the pain which may happen at that particular moment. And that gives us the feeling of goodness. I performed very well in something, like in exercise, maybe when we are having a run, or maybe when we are doing some kind of other exercise. So basically, these situations basically cause us to exert a lot of effort, but they give us pleasure. And that's basically because of endorphin. Endorphin basically helps in masking the pain. That pain, so that we don't feel pain at least at that particular moment. And we enjoy the moment, we get the good feeling. So this group of four neurotransmitters is also known as happy chemicals, happiness chemicals, and in addition to emotional situations, these happiness chemicals also get released through other means like diet, physical activity, and therapy. So probably we can break now.
So on the note of happiness chemicals,
On the happiness chemicals.
Any food division like apple helps in dopamine, and banana helps in dopamine. No, dopamine is no sale lah. But dopamine. Suppose I'm talking about the any relation to food, apple, banana, or any other food. Now walnut for any sexual food.
So
That increases something like that. Is it?
So each chemical has its own based upon different situations these chemicals get released. जैसे dopamine का हमने बताया कि when you get a good feeling और कोई हमें एक attraction and motivation, so that releases your dopamine. So it's not just by food.
नहीं I'm thinking नहीं मतलब कहते हैं कि आयरन मिलता है एप्पल से तो हम ये जाना चाहिए बनाना सस्टेन मिलता है तो क्या वो इंडोक्राइन हेल्प करता है ये कुछ ऐसा एस्टैब्लिश हुआ है
So endorphin is basically जैसे एग्जांपल है endorphin. Endorphin is basically pain killer. ये नेचुरल पेन किलर है जो हमारी बॉडी में खुद ही जनरेट होता है. So you can take some pain killers. नार्कोटिक्स जैसे हैं आपके.
अरे नेचुरल मैं फूड से रिलेटेड है जब सपोज ब्रोकली will help in this, walnut will help in this.
Definitely. So there could be some food.
नहीं तो एंडोर्फिन जैसे एंडोर्फिन है रनिंग एक्सरसाइज एक्सेट्रा एंडोर्फिन बढ़ेगा
Okay.
ठीक है ऑक्सीटोसिन के लिए वो संजय दत्त की जादू की झप्पी,
अच्छा।
जादू की झप्पी आप देखो
मतलब
तो
all things are literally emotions. No, food
Right.
will not be helpful.
हाँ नहीं
Kind of food.
It will also help.
नहीं वो तो आप कर लो artificial, ये तो natural
Food is like a supplement.
see these things evolved over human behavior and keeping that. So therefore, dopamine comes in when you are feeling happy कि you solve some problem. हमसे कहोगे तुम क्या मैथमेटिक्स करो, गणित के सवाल कर लोगे तो डोपामिन चढ़ेगा.
खाने के लिए फूड क्रिएट करें, जैसे कई बार हम बहुत स्ट्रेसफुल होते हैं तो हम खाना खाने से नहीं, शुगर लेने से, खाना खाने से हमारा स्ट्रेस रिलीज हो रहा है. आई थिंक यू वांटेड टू से दिस कि फूड से हमारा
नहीं फूड से तुमने सही
Coffee
कहा.
पीने से जैसे-
Walnut helps you in something in the brain.
हाँ,
It helps you with many things.
वो मैं जानता हूँ रिलेशन कुछ एस्टैब्लिश हुआ है इस तरह.
Yes, yes. So जैसे आपका स्पाइसी फूड होता है, स्पाइसी फूड हेल्प्स इन एंडोर्फिन.
These chemicals get
So
activated sharply or by external inputs or reduced. These are the chemicals
जैसे स्पाइसी फूड है आपका या डार्क
existing in the
चॉकलेट
body.
है. डार्क चॉकलेट हेल्प्स इन रिलीज ऑफ एंडोर्फिन्स. So there are various food which can help you in release of these chemicals.
So external input gets activate all those. External input get activate or
ये काफी कुछ दिनों पहले टीवी पे एक ऐड आती थी. एक छोटा बच्चा है, वो नाराज हो जाता है तो घर से निकल पड़ता है और दादाजी समझ जाते हैं कि इसे कुछ गड़बड़ है, तो उसको ले जाते हैं दुकान पे जलेबी वाले के सामने. वो कहता है जलेबी, वो एकदम से बच्चा खुश हो जाता है.
चेंज हो जाता है. बीच में 2 मिनट कौन तो क्या ना
हाँ sure.
हाँ
ब्रेक
ठीक.
और टी ब्रेक वाला सकता है.
जी जी
नहीं टी ब्रेक 2 मिनट बाद से
वजह से
There is the low observations as a computer engineer. एक हमारी लैंग्वेज होती है प्रोलॉग, और अब मजे की बात है कि मैं उसका मतलब लैंग्वेज का नाम मेरे को 5-10 मिनट लगे ढूंढने में, भूल गया था.
आपकी लैंग्वेज ही भूल हो गई.
हाँ नहीं, नाम भूल जाता है.
नहीं प्रोग्राम.
हाँ, तो उसमें वजह ये है. हाँ हाँ, लिस्ट बेसिकली. तो होता क्या है उसमें लिस्ट और प्रोलॉग में, इट्स ए रूल बेस्ड लैंग्वेज. तो रूल बेस्ड में क्या होता है, द रूल्स व्हिच वी यूज मोर ऑफन कम ऑन द टॉप. जो जैसे जैसे कोई लिमिटेड मेमोरी होती है तो रूल नीचे चले जाते हैं. जैसे आप दोबारा यूज करते हैं तो फिर ऊपर आ जाता है. एक्चुअली मैं पीएचडी थीसिस करा रहा था कि कंप्यूटर में रूल बेसिस को चेंज कैसे किया जाए, मेमोरी में डाला जाए फिर ऊपर लाया जाए वगैरह वगैरह. तो जैसे हमारे दिमाग में हर रूल बना रहता है. जो आपको कोई बचपन की घटना है कहीं ना कहीं बीच में होती है, तो बीच में दोबारा आप सिमुलेट करते हैं तो आपको एकदम याद आ जाता है. डॉक्टर पंत इज एन एक्सेप्शन, इनको सब याद रहता है तो हमें याद नहीं रहता है. तो वो एक्चुअली रूल बेस्ड जो है कंप्यूटर भी हमारा, ब्रेन इज बेसिकली अ रूल बेस्ड थिंग. जैसे जैसे सीखता जाता है रूल्स बढ़ते चले जाते हैं, लेकिन वो रूल किसी तरह से नीचे चले जाते हैं. अभी हमारी कोई टेक्निक शायद नहीं है कोई कि रूल्स जो है हम दोबारा इंटरमीडिएट लेवल पे चलते जाए. और दूसरा इन्होंने कहा था कि ब्रेन के अंदर क्या है. अनफॉर्चुनेटली अब जब हम कंप्यूटर्स पढ़ाते हैं आजकल तो कंप्यूटर्स की बेसिक्स नहीं पढ़ाते हैं. कल कोई कंप्यूटर की मेमोरी कहे कि मैं देख के कहूँ कि ये कंप्यूटर काम कैसे करता, दैट्स इम्पॉसिबल. ऑल यू विल गेट इन मेमोरी जीरोज एंड वंस, नथिंग एल्स, नथिंग मोर. और उन जीरो वंस की स्टडी से आपको कुछ मिलने वाला नहीं है. एंड आई डू नॉट नो आजकल कंप्यूटर साइंस में पढ़ाते हैं या नहीं. एक्चुअली जो कंप्यूटर में हम मेमोरी में स्टोर करते हैं दैट इज इन फॉर्म ऑफ जीरोज एंड वंस ओनली, नथिंग एल्स. 0-1 भी नोशनल है, वैसे 0-1 होता नहीं है. तो इट इज योर सॉफ्टवेयर जो आप होता है उसको इंटरप्रेट कैसे करता है. उसी तरह से मेरा ख्याल है ब्रेन में भी कुछ होता होगा. तो एक मिस्टेकन बिलीफ है कि हम वीडियो देखते हैं कंप्यूटर से. नो, मैं 0-1 आप बोल रहे हैं, ऑडियो फाइल है, उसका मैं वीडियो बना सकता हूँ. इट्स इजी, आई नो हाउ टू डू इट. या आपने कोई मैट्रिक्स स्टोर कर रखी है, मैं उसकी ऑडियो फाइल बना सकता हूँ. बट दिस इज नॉर्मली नॉट नोन. हर आदमी सोचता है कंप्यूटर कर रहा है, कंप्यूटर नहीं करता है. कंप्यूटर में तो आपने डाल दी एक जीरोज एंड वंस, वो बात आ गई. तो दिस 2 थिंग्स आई वांटेड टू ब्रिंग टू योर नोटिस. और दूसरी मेरी एक और थ्योरी है, बट पर्सनल ऑब्जर्वेशन, कि जो सर दर्द क्यों होती है। तो मेरा मानना ये है कि बॉडी सेल्फ हीलिंग आप जानते हैं, अगर आपको कोई कष्ट हो रहा है तो बॉडी विल ट्राई टू टेक इट केयर। बॉडी मीन्स द ब्रेन अल्टीमेटली। जब ब्रेन को समझ में नहीं आता कि मैं क्या करूं, तो वो अपना करना शुरू कर देता, भाई काम कर, एंड स्टिल दैट सिम्टम्स डोंट गो। तो जैसे हम मशीन कोई होती है तो गर्म हो जाती है, तो ब्रेन भी आपका गर्म हो जाता है और आपकी हो जाती है सर दर्द शुरू। दैट इज माई ऑब्जर्वेशन। तो सर दर्द इसीलिए आपकी होती है कि वो जो सिम्टम है वो बॉडी जो है आपकी, या ब्रेन जो है वो उसको ठीक नहीं कर पाता है, जो भी है। तो वो जब आप ये सर दर्द की हम गोली लेते हैं, मेरा अपना, मैं डॉक्टर तो नहीं हूँ, कि गोली लेते हैं तो वो उसको जहां से सर दर्द का सिम्टम होता है उसको जाकर सप्रेस करता है, दैट्स ऑल। एक और अगर आप 1 मिनट दें, डॉक्टर साहब मेंशन वो हंसते, तो थोड़ी देर मुझे याद आ गई कि मैं, आप सब इंटेलेक्चुअल्स हैं यहाँ बैठे हुए, हक्सले ने 1920 में एक बड़ी ऑब्जर्वेशन हिंदुस्तान के बारे में करी थी, जो आज के संदर्भ में बड़ी उचित है। मैं दूसरा चश्मा लूं। 1920 में तो 1920 में हक्सले तो साइंटिस्ट भी था, फिलोसोफर। अब आप याद, उसमें तो मैं नहीं आपसे compete कर पाऊंगा। So fully indeed, पीछे का नजर नहीं आ रहा, indeed do they live in the present, that they have compelled the Indians, like the Irish at the other end of the world, to turn to the past. In the course of last 30 years, that is 20 से पहले 1890 में चले जाइए, or 40 years, a huge pseudo-historical literature has sprung up in India. The melancholy product of a subject people's inferiority complex. Industrious and intelligent men have wasted their time and their abilities to trying to prove that the ancient Hindus were superior to every other people in every activity of life. वो आज भी यही हो रहा है. A new scientific discovery, misguided scholars have ransacked Sanskrit literature to find a phrase that might be interpreted as a Hindu anticipation of it. तो वो कहता है कि अगर ये टाइम आप वेस्ट नहीं करते तो आप बहुत आगे जा सकते थे. तो आज का संदर्भ, आई डो नॉट नो हो, in 1920 he did it. सब एक मिनट, एडलस,
एल्डस एक्सले की किताब है पेरिनियल फिलॉसफी,
हाँ शायद उसी से है
इसमें ये सब कहीं।
हाँ, तो ये एक बड़ी अजीब सी बात है. 1920 में वो कह रहा है जो आज हम कह रहे हैं, कुछ भी बात होती है, नहीं सर हमारे वेदों में लिखा हुआ है. तो यही कहता है कि अगर ये आपने एनर्जी कहीं और लगाई होती तो आप बहुत आगे निकल गए होते.
ये बात सही है.
हाँ, मैंने कहा आप सब बैठे हैं तो मैं शायद ये भी कोट कर एल्डस एक्सले एग्जैक्टली. ये बड़ी बात है. ये बात 1920 में वो उसने कैसे निष्कर्ष निकाला.
ऐसा है, आपने क्योंकि रेस कर दिया है, तो मैं प्राइवेटली कहता हूँ कि जो भूपेश हिंट कर रहा था, चर्चिल ने इंडिपेंडेंस के पहले कहता इंडिया को अगर इंडिपेंडेंस दोगे तो ऐसा ऐसा होगा. वो वही नरेंद्र मोदी को
Okay, let's have a 10-15 minutes break.
Let's have a happiness hormone.
Yes.
वो कह रहे खाने से कहीं से
Get the energy. The tea is outside there and snacks in there. Then after 15 minutes we will come back. So say around 12:05.
हाँ.
सर आपकी
आप तो जानते ही हैं, तो एक चाय और
Food का proper research. Food का proper research है. invented fats, so on. Tryptophan, dopamine, or phenyl aminodopamine. This is basically all in the chocolate, dark chocolate. Bananas actually contain serotonin, and also the vitamin B6 basically creates.
You eat something which stimulates that.
Yeah.
Rather than eating
Yeah.
In fact, it's
No,
take calcium for example.
yeah.
Calcium tablet can give you as much benefit as food which contain calcium which can be processed. So dietary calcium अलग हो गया, chemical calcium अलग हो गया. Doctor will both calcium tablet they will come, but that's not so good. If you take spinach or brinjal or whatever which has calcium, that is more effective. We don't quite know why.
No, it says, in fact, this article is very good. I can read it sometime back. Basically, what it does is there is two ways of really absorbing it. One is through the internal food system. The other is through the chemical system. So all these foods basically stimulate the
हाँ सर आपने कह रहे थे आपने कहा केमिकल प्रोड्यूस करने के लिए जादू की झपकी भी काम करती है तो संजय दत्त वाला वही है ना आपने संजय दत्त का एग्जाम्पल दीजिए लेकिन उससे what happens to conservation of nature input क्या है because you can't produce anything in movement can be produced out of जादू की झपकी नहीं वो तो इमोशन की बॉडी माइंड वाला इश्यू है see every your body is stimulated to produce those इसीलिए तो मैं happiness hormone का तो कह रहा हूँ बहुत सारी चीजें होती है बॉडी हमें प्रोड्यूस करती रहती है I mean something has to go to produce something physical various things which are in your body we don't know many you probably we don't know as individuals humanity knows क्योंकि वेल एस्टैब्लिश्ड नहीं बहुत सारी ये जैसे नहीं हम लोग प्रोटीन खाते हैं लोग बताते हैं कि ये प्रोटीन तो जल्दी को बनाता है ये इनको खाना ही पड़ता है तो बॉडी कैनॉट नहीं हम तो आपने कैल्शियम भी एग्जांपल दिया ये लोग ग्रेजुअली कैल्शियम इज बिल्ड तो खाने पड़ता है ना आइडेंटिफाई कीजिए तो बॉडी खुद बना लेगा हेल्दी सिस्टम में जो वर्ड है इसकी तासीर ऐसी होती है हाँ करेक्ट नेचर I'm very closely
मेडिकल डॉक्टर बुला रहा है आपको
ये इन्होंने एक बात करी थी, सपने की आपने लिखा है। अगर आपको याद हो, बीच में एक कला था कि अगर कंप्यूटर आर सिटिंग आइडल फॉर, जब हम काम नहीं करते खाली इनकी नेटवर्किंग करी जाए ताकि जो पावर है यूज हो जाए ऑल द वर्ल्ड चला रहा। मेरे ख्याल से अगर ऊपर वाला की लिखा है तो हम लोगों की जो है रात को यूज कर सकते हैं। वेरियस थिंग्स आर सिमुलेटेड कि आप कैसे एक्ट कर रहे हो, सपने में बड़े भयंकर आते हैं। तो वो जो होता है तो वो है कि आप कर रहे हैं, वो कुछ एक्सपेरिमेंट कर रहा होगा कि ये सिचुएशन हो जाए।
आप जो कह रहे हैं को ग्रिड कंप्यूटिंग,
वही ग्रिड कंप्यूटिंग। तो ऊपर वाला ग्रिड कंप्यूटिंग यूज करता है बिकॉज आपको ब्रेन खाली है, आप सो रहे हैं कुछ नहीं कर रहे।
वो कौन सी लैंग्वेज यूज करते हैं?
भगवान
हम लोग जितनी कंप्यूटर लैंग्वेज यूज करते हैं इनकी कौन सी लैंग्वेज है जो कॉमन फॉर 7 बिलियन
लैंग्वेज तो काम होती नहीं।
कम्युनिकेशन कैसे होगा बिना लैंग्वेज?
आपने कभी बच्चे देखे जिसको बोलना नहीं आता? कभी नहीं देखे। ये कम्युनिकेट आप उनकी इमोशंस भी होती है, वो रोना और हंसना भी एक सा होता है बिना छूट के, उसका एंगर भी होता है, खुशी भी होती है।
अरे रमेश जी को आपको
मुझे मेरे को एहसास हुआ, मैं कहीं बैठा हुआ था बाहर, बच्चे सुबह मेरे पास में सारे आए हुए थे, तो चीनी बच्चे थे। मैंने ये भी बच्चे वैसे करना है जैसे हमारे बच्चे करते हैं, जब कोई टेंट्रम, माँ भी वैसे बिहेव कर रही है, तो जब लैंग्वेज नहीं उनका सबका एक ही तरीका है, ये तो लैंग्वेज से आप लोग अपना लैंग्वेज नहीं होगी अपनी बोलोगे।
not everybody can say that ये कभी नहीं बोला था कि क्या होता है।
मेरे ख्याल में ये अच्छी चीज है, बैठेगा
बोल नहीं पाता वो, आर्टिकुलेशन नहीं होता उसका, इंग्लिश के जैसा
मुझे वही है, वो कॉमन है सब सबको हैप्पीनेस के आगे बढ़ते हैं।
Yeah, I think here we go. Good dose of happiness.
France communicate with each other. There is no word, there is no question, but they communicate and they talk about certain disasters and threats.
How did we get to know this? That they talk about impending disaster.
They're able to communicate in neighborhood plans, in various things. Very defined now.
So in our session we will cover
Two their roots,
बहुत ही बड़े रूल्स की मतलब का सेंसिटिव होता है काम।
नहीं रूट से तो कम्युनिकेट,
हाँ, वो मतलब उसका ये नहीं पता कि हाउ डू दे जो मतलब उस चीज को कैसे डील करते हैं, अगर हाँ अगर किसी चीज की वजह से
और यूट्यूब पर आपको हेल्प देगा अच्छी लेवल क्वेश्चंस।
So shall we start?
yes sir.
So we talk about happiness chemicals. Next, let's talk about pain. I think sir was talking about pain towards the end. And how do we get the feeling of pain? So pain is a complex phenomenon, and it's not just seen as a harm to the body. So harm to the body versus pain, these need to be considered separately. And it involves both sensory as well as emotional components. So basically, body's way of communicating to the brain that there is something wrong and it needs attention. So what happens is, suppose you needle hits your finger. There are certain receptors, basically these are called nociceptors, which are spread across body, and they send signal to different neurons, and through our spinal cord, this goes to the brain, and then brain gives a signal to kind of back off from that source. So basically, pain indicates that there is something wrong, and then brain gives a signal to muscles to withdraw from that situation. So what do we do to kind of get relief from pain is basically we use something called as opioids, which are basically kind of pain modulators. These are class of drugs known as narcotics, and these are commonly prescribed for relief from pain. So when we take some kind of a painkiller, basically these are helping us to modulate that feeling of pain. It's not kind of correcting that situation. It's not correcting that body fault or body kind of the damage to the body, but it is just masking the kind of a feeling of pain. So what it does is kind of is a, something this opioid receiver जो हमने बात की थी न्यूरॉन्स के कनेक्शंस की. So the sender neuron and the receptor neuron has some opioid receivers, and these opioids go and kind of block that path, because of which जो पेन का सिग्नल आपकी फिंगर से आ रहा होगा, that gets blocked and it doesn't go to the brain. So this is how your painkillers work. But we have to be careful about using them, because these could be highly addictive. Because जब painkiller लेते हैं, so apart from masking this path, they also kind of release some chemicals which make us feel happy. So these become kind of become habits which are not good for our body.
So Rahul, एक
जी.
इशू है डेवलप करने के लिए, what is addiction and how does addiction happen?
Okay. So addiction is something which basically, again, like any experience which you have, it gives you some specific feeling. That feeling is like there is something which invokes dopamine. Dopamine is something which makes me feel good, although it may not be good for me, but it temporarily gives me a feeling of goodness, and my body feels that when I receive this particular thing, I will feel good. So I'll try to consume. I'll try to go for it again and again, and it becomes kind of a habit, because एक बार मेरे को उस लेवल का ट्रिगर मिलता है, then I become kind of addictive or basically tolerant to that. So next time I need a higher level of trigger, and next time even more higher level of trigger. So every time I need a higher and higher level of triggers, which becomes kind of a addiction. Because एक लेवल के लिए तो मेरा brain I think tolerant हो गया. अब not next time it's higher. So it is not just happiness; they also have some side effects, and these side effects are basically are harmful, and that's where we feel basically these habits we have to be careful about using these. जैसे आप एक गैम्बलिंग कर रहे हो, so गैम्बलिंग में आपको कुछ खुशी मिल रही है, but you become kind of addictive to that very soon. Similarly, anything आपको मीठा अच्छा लगता है, तो आप every time you want to get more and more. So having that kind of control is basically what is needed.
ये जब एडिक्शन का बात होता है, तो ये एडिक्शन सेंटर्स क्या करते हैं?
De-addiction centers.
जैसे मोबाइल का आजकल इसके भी आ गए हैं, मोबाइल के एडिक्शन का भी de-addiction का होगा.
So it's basically requires a lot of counseling. You have to basically make them realize that this is what is happening to the body, and one is kind of providing that understanding that this is really happening to you, and then you kind of try to give some such treatment which no longer gives you that kind of pleasure from those things. जैसे अगर मेरे को स्वीट खाने मतलब मीठा खाने से अगर खुशी हो रही है, probably they will try to give you a dopamine suppressors. There will be some kind of some kind of which will kind of not led me to that kind of pleasure which I used to get.
What is it? You get pleasure, it gets and regularly. And the memory system also has a time frame within
Right.
this. Now, if you get during that period, it's okay. If it doesn't get, then you start asking for it.
So every
And
time
when you ask
आपको
asking for it, then it gets into habit forming.
right. So that happens with any kind of addiction.
But it sits in your memory.
Right.
And de-addiction process to removing it from the memory.
slowly removing.
Slowly removing from
जो आपको
by
पहले
talk,
खुशी,
by
जो आपको एक अच्छा
giving alternative dose of certain other things which doesn't make you, all those things they take.
राइट. सो बेसिकली जिन चीजों से आपको पहले प्लेजर मिला था, हैप्पीनेस मिल रही थी, उसको हैप्पीनेस की जगह यू हैव टू कन्वर्ट इनटू समथिंग एल्स. सो देन यू काइंड ऑफ स्टार्ट फीलिंग कि यस.
So there's also environment also plays a huge role in this exact process. So there was this exact, so when American troops were in Vietnam, there was a huge war happening. So the most of the American troops were highly addicted of cocaine. It was a very addictive thing, and because of this, America predicted that when these troops come back to America, there's going to be a drug epidemic because there's so many of the troops are so addicted to this. But when the troops came back to America, most of them were easily able to quit cocaine because of the fact that the environment had completely changed.
Right.
So your exact environment affects a lot of how your addictive patterns are predicted as well.
Yes, so basically based upon the need of the job, there's certain things which you consume based upon the need of the job. So we can have a lot of discussion on this topic, but basically point is that addiction happens when you don't have the control on what you are consuming. So there are certain opioids which are also produced naturally in the body. We were talking about endorphin. So endorphin is basically something which gets produced in the body based upon when you have some good feeling. And so it is basically a natural painkiller which is generated by the body itself. And that's also the concept of this placebo effect. Basically, if a patient has a feeling कि जो मेरे को treatment दिया जा रहा है, that is going to really give me help, then even if that treatment is not genuine, you will get a kind of a good feeling and it will release endorphin, which will help you in masking the pain. So that is basically the concept behind placebo effect. Then comes the concept of threat versus reward. So as we discussed in the morning that brain is programmed for survival. It continuously monitors the environment, predicts where and how to get to avoid threat and encounter rewards. कैसे खतरों से बचा जाए और क्या what could be the good things which give me pleasure. So it could be threats or rewards, and these threats and rewards could be physical or it could be emotional. So there could be certain things which make me feel good. किसी ने मुझे praise किया, तो then I feel good about it. And any such situations will be treated as a kind of a reward to me. On the other hand, if I get some good bad feelings, bad emotions, that is threat to me. So what happens is whenever I am encountering a threat situation, my reaction could be either in terms of fight or flight. Means either I will face that situation with some kind of actions, or I will try to run away from that. That's basically what brain controls, that how do I handle that situation. And what happens in that situation is whenever there is a threat, it basically releases some chemicals known as cortisol and adrenaline. And these basically drive different body conditions, like they will reduce the sensitivity to pain, they will decrease the serotonin, and it will suppress the immune system. जो ब्लड आपका भी इम्यून सिस्टम में जा रहा था, उसको वो ब्लड शुगर में कन्वर्ट करके बाकी जो आपके मसल्स वगैरह हैं उनमें सप्लाई करना शुरू कर देते हैं. एंड heightened memory and attention and blood pressure increases. So basically all these things get initiated because of cortisol and adrenal release. So threat देखते ही brain तरह के chemicals को release करता है and the body reacts accordingly.
एक प्रश्न है, ऑब्जर्वेशन है
जी.
कि मान लीजिए आप चल रहे हैं तो आपके पास आ गया डरने, तो अगर आप डरेंगे, आई डोंट नो व्हाट केमिकल का समझ आती है कि आप अगर डर रहे हैं तो आप अटैक करेंगे, अगर आप डरेंगे नहीं
Right.
अगर अगर आपके में डर की भावना आ गई, डर मीन या तो आप कमजोर हैं या कोई चोर होगा, आप उस पर अटैक करने वाले हैं, तो तब वो अटैक करता है।
तो वही
लेकिन
सर
आप चुपचाप रहिए, आप में कोई डर की भावना ना हो, कुत्ता कभी भी नहीं कहता। ये मैंने पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस।
वही सर, मतलब हमारी जो लिम्बिक सिस्टम है उसने वहाँ पे ट्रिगर दिया कि अरे खतरा आ रहा है। ऊपर से अगर मेरे कॉर्टेक्स ने अगर कंट्रोल बनाए रखा, उसने कहा कि नहीं सब कुछ ठीक है, देयर इज नथिंग टू वरी, देन आई विल बेसिकली बिहेव नॉर्मली। बट द मोमेंट आई स्टार्ट काइंड ऑफ माय कंट्रोल फ्रॉम द हायर लेवल इज नॉट देयर, देन आई विल स्टार्ट काइंड ऑफ टेकिंग सम।
कुत्ते को कैसे पता चलता है कि मैं डर रहा हूँ क्या नहीं?
सर उसमें अगर कुत्ते को अगर इतना पता हो तो फिर तो वो मतलब
केमिकल रिलीज होते होंगे, the animal can
सो दैट्स बेसिकली, जैसे हम लोगों का होता है कि हमको लगता है कि हम किसी को अटैक कर रहे हैं, देन वी गेट काइंड ऑफ मोर एनर्जेटिक। अगर सामने वाला हमसे डरता है तो हम और ज्यादा उसके ऊपर चढ़ने की कोशिश करते हैं। सेम थिंग विल हैपन टू द डॉग एज वेल।
जो आपको ब्लड परसेप्शन हुआ, आप नॉर्मल जैसे जा रहे हैं तो आप विथड्रॉ कर लिया आपने, दैट चेंज ऑफ स्टेंस विल ट्रिगर द डॉग्स थिंकिंग। Yes.
वो ये उसको कैसे पता चलता है?
So actually there is, like, I have not read about man and dog wala, but among humans there is this whole concept of mirror neurons कि हम दूसरे को देख के we get those feelings and
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, वो भी होता है।
maybe the dog
Human beings में भी ये होता है।
so maybe dogs have mirror neurons.
एक और एग्जांपल देना चाहता हूँ। We are sitting in this room and this door is closing, it's making that noise. At this time, I am not scared at all. But if the same type of noise disturbs me in the middle of the night when it's totally pitch dark,
बिल्कुल
I'll have different perception altogether.
कोई आया है, yes, that's right.
सर बट अगर हम उसको रिमोट वैसे भी ना देखें, अगर जो उसको प्यार करता है वो कुछ द वे दे एक्सप्रेस, चाहे वो हैंड मूवमेंट है, चाहे फेशियल एक्सप्रेशन है, उसको जो एक्सप्रेशन देता है कि वो इसको बुला रहा है। अब ऐसे उसको कोई ट्रेनिंग तो हुई नहीं है कि दिस साउंड मींस, बट देयर इज दिस कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ फेशियल एक्सप्रेशन, बॉडी लैंग्वेज व्हिच कन्वेज दैट इमोशन कि व्हाट आई एम डूइंग। तो अगर वो चीज उसको बुला सकती है, तो दैट एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ
वो
दैट एक्सप्रेशन इटसेल्फ कैन आल्सो कन्वेज कि ये मेरे से डर रहा है।
एग्जैक्टली
राइट। जो अगर वो बहुत इजी वर्ड में जैसे आपने रेप्टिलियन ब्रेन कहा, मतलब जिसको भी वो नहीं चाहिए, मतलब एवरीवन इज कनेक्टेड।
So it's not like the brain, dogs are kind of without brain. They have brain, but जो ऊपर जो thinking part है उनका वो बहुत कम है. But basically that's a very limited one. And they also have emotions. That's why they get attached to us.
Animals can realize faster earlier. So human being भी अगर डर रहा है तो उसको भी वो रियलाइज कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि वो तो नियर बाई ही है ना, बहुत उतनी जब आपको भी वो रियलाइज कर सकते हैं।
Right. So they can have a different sense. They have altogether different senses which we may not be having right now. जैसे हम birds का कहते हैं कि birds have some sense which they can kind of find out when the earthquake is about to happen or some kind of.
So I think it is all about the sniffing. वो बंदा दूर से 50 मीटर दूर से जा रहा होता है, वो कूड़ा उठाने वाला, और यहाँ पे डॉग बैठा होता है, अचानक भौंकना शुरू कर देता है पीछे भाग। तो अगर हम सड़क पे जा रहे हैं और डर रहे हैं जैसे, तो देयर इज पॉसिबिलिटी कि हमारे कोई ऐसे हार्मोन या स्वेटिंग में रिलीज हो रहा है जिसको वो स्निफ कर रहा है।
So we are not able to sniff that, but maybe the dog is able to sniff that.
हाँ, हम नहीं कर सकते, लेकिन वो कर सकते हैं।
So it's a limitation of our senses.
इस लिमिटेशन
नहीं, वो जो जैसे जिसको लाइट डिटेक्टर कहते हैं, लाइट डिटेक्टर कैसे काम करता है कि वो जो आपकी स्वेट हल्की सी होती है उसको डिटेक्ट कर लेता है। तो व्हाट इज सेइंग इज दैट नोजेस आर वेरी सेंसिटिव एंड दे कैच ड्रग वाला पूछ लेते कर लेते हैं, ये कर लेते हैं। सो मे बी हमारे उसमें जो स्वेटिंग हो रहा है, डर के मारे स्वेटिंग है, वो इतना कम है कि हमको नहीं लगता है कि स्वेटिंग है, पर उसको समझ में आ रहा है। हाँ,
olfactory, smelling.
In case of dogs, it is
आप जहाँ से ओल्फैक्टरी में पहुँचे वो आ जाएगा कि इट इज अ क्वांटम फेनोमेनन। इसमें बड़ी अच्छी किताब लिखी है, तो देखिए बड़ी मजेदार किताब है, हाउ टू टीच क्वांटम फिजिक्स टू योर डॉग। ये किताब बहुत ही वेरी गुड फिजिसिस्ट हिमसेल्फ, उसने प्रॉपर्ली बनाई है कि उसका कुत्ता उसको क्वांटम का नहीं, ये वो सब। एनीवे कंटिन्यू, सॉरी।
So on one hand we have these chemicals which are getting released from fat, And on the other hand, we have different rewards chemical which we have already discussed. So this is our brain's emotional system. The limbic system here is में. So there are different parts here. We'll just quickly talk about them. So thalamus is basically the sensory information. जितने senses हैं, those are all getting kind of combined in thalamus. Then hippocampus is basically the memory center. It's a basically center for forming episodic memories and cataloging. So sir, जो आप क्वेश्चन पूछे थे मेमोरी का, तो this is basically taken care in the hippocampus, which creates kind of a catalog or kind of a index, और जो I think computer की language में हम कहते हैं contained addressable memory. So it's something like that, which creates a kind of a list of what all we know, and उनका एक्चुअली में कहाँ पे कहाँ पूरे ब्रेन में हमारे जो स्प्रेड आउट होगा, that is basically taken care in the hippocampus. And amygdala, basically this is a small piece of the size of a almond, और छोटा सा part होता है, but it is very critical in terms of our emotional experiences. So feelings like pleasure, anxiety, anger, all that is basically recognized by amygdala. So how these emotions occur? So we get a kind of a stress situation. Probably this picture is not coming out very clearly, but basically this is the brain only, and we are talking about the limbic system. So amygdala is basically the alarm center. It detects threats and it starts the stress response. And hippocampus is the brain's biographer, which retrieves memories from the past and anticipates what will happen. And the prefrontal cortex, which is basically the front part of our brain, immediately behind our forehead, that is basically kind of CEO. जो पूरे हमारे बॉडी का जो CEO है, that is immediately right behind our forehead. So it analyzes. So analyzes information and designs a response. मतलब इस situation को मुझे handle कैसे करना है. And that is basically that plan is given to hypothalamus. So hypothalamus is basically the controller of muscles, and it gives that trigger. So sympathetic and nervous system को command कहेगा कि like you need to whether you need to increase the body temperature or heart rate, blood pressure, and motor system, that means you need to withdraw basically the muscles वगैरह को withdraw करने के लिए. So this is how typically threat is handled, and it's like your upper part of the brain is trying to kind of put control on the emotional part. So prefrontal cortex may also decide not to take any agitative action based on previous experiences. अगर हमारे पास previous experiences हैं, हमें मालूम है कि इस तरह की situation में कुछ नहीं होगा, तो probably we will kind of keep it calm. And it may regulate amygdala to lower its reaction. It can say like, ठीक है, ज़्यादा परेशान मत हो. So it may kind of lower the volume of amygdala. So in case of adolescence, this development of cortex, this happens basically late. So the brain gets developed, it reaches the maximum size of by 11 years for girls and by 14 years for boys. But it doesn't stop the development of brain. The brain का development it continues till 20 years. And लिम्बिक सिस्टम जो है वो पहले डेवलप हो जाता है. सो बेसिकली जो हमारा इमोशनल वाला पार्ट है ब्रेन का वो पहले डेवलप हो जाता है वर्सेस द कोर्टेक्स जो फ्रंट कोर्टेक्स है. सो दिस द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ दिस फ्रंट कोर्टेक्स कंटिन्यूज टिल से अराउंड 25 इयर्स, एंड उसके बीच में और जो लिम्बिक सिस्टम के बीच का जो कनेक्शन है दैट इज स्टिल काइंड ऑफ डेवलपिंग टिल 25 इयर्स. सो दैट्स व्हाई वी फाइंड दैट जो एडोलेसेंट्स हैं those are generally more emotional. They are not able to exercise right kind of control with respect to their emotions. Neuroplasticity is basically the concept of learning. So Learning involves creation of connections among neurons. So जो हमारे neurons हैं, so based upon there's a small video which I would like to cover. Not very long, no. So it will explain how we.
What's going on in the brain when you learn? In order to learn anything, whether it's math, foreign language, guitar, or how to dribble a basketball, you need to create and strengthen pathways in your brain. Think about shooting a free throw. Know that feeling when you've got it down and don't even have to think about it? That's muscle memory. Here's the thing. Muscle memory lives in the brain, not the muscles. Your brain controls everything your muscles do, and it does this by activating specific neural pathways for each and every movement. These are functional pathways, neurons working together to achieve a goal. Say you're learning how to shoot a free throw. If it's your first time doing it, you don't yet have a pathway for that movement in your brain. You need to create it. Let's use an analogy to look at what's happening in the brain during this time. When you're first learning, your brain is like a forest full of trees and dense foliage, with no clear pathway between point A and point B. As you learn the mechanics of shooting a free throw, you create a trail through the forest. Now you can shoot the free throw because you've created that pathway in your brain. But you probably don't make many shots because it's so new. The pathway isn't very clear yet. In order to improve your free throw, you need to refine and strengthen the free throw pathway in your brain. The way you do that is through practice. Practice gradually widens the trail through the trees, turning it into a dirt road between A and B. You're starting to get pretty good now. You're making more free throws than not. You don't have to think about mechanics as much. That's because the pathway gets stronger after each practice rep. And you've done a lot of reps. With even more practice, the dirt road turns into a paved road connecting A and B, allowing information to be transmitted at a faster rate. Now you're a 70% free throw shooter, and when you step up to the line, you don't even have to think about it. Eventually, with enough practice, what started as a trail has become a full-blown highway. Now you're a master, draining almost every free throw, and the movement is completely second nature. Scientists call this plasticity, and it's your brain's innate ability to create and strengthen connections between neurons. These connections are the path through the forest.
So this is in short about neuroplasticity. So as you learn new skills, new neural pathways get created in the network in our brain, and this is something which keeps on happening each day, every moment as we learn new things. Yes.
Is it related to age factor?
Sorry.
Is it related to age factor?
Age factor. So this is continuous. So the whole yes till that this learning continues. So it never stops.
So, but it's like 25, you got your neuroplasticity increases, right? That's when children are able to learn new things easier because it's easier for them to form neural connections. And like it decreases as you grow older.
That's right. So basically,
So I'd like to comment on this. First, age-related, very interesting thing is that there is a phrase, and you can look for it, called synaptic pruning, which happens at about the age of 2 or 3 years. So by 2 years, the child has had so much experience that he'll be totally confused. And therefore, a synaptic pruning happens so that much of, and that's why we don't remember much of our early childhood. You try to go back to early childhood, you find that the time below which you don't recall anything because synaptic pruning happens. Second point that you made was that children learn much faster, elders learn much slowly. When I was about 55 years of age, that's now 20 years ago, I was once with a bunch of doctors from all India studying medical science in an informal setting. So I asked them this very question. I said, why is it that as we grow older, our ability to learn becomes less than that of children? And I was expecting an answer that he would give something, some aging of the neurons, something of the axon. Like for diabetes, we say as you grow old, insulin secretion decreases, insulin quality decreases, and so you have diabetes. He said, no. You can keep learning up to the last day unless you are brain dead. And he said, the reason children learn so much more is you just spend more time in learning. He said, look at a child under 5 years of age. All the waking hours he is learning, practicing, trying. We learn from lunch break to tea break. So it's a this is the thing. If you spend all your waking hours, all your more time learning, you will learn a lot more. And Einstein had said this long ago. He said, "I'm not smarter than you. It is that I stay with the problem longer." हम लोगों का टी ब्रेक हो गया, लंच ब्रेक हो गया, ये हो गया, तो उतना टेंशन नहीं। बच्चा जो है वो टोटली एनग्रॉस होता है, उसको खाने के लिए बुलाना पड़ता है। Whatever is doing is well, and he's mimicking. मुझे याद है, मुझे जब खांसी होती थी, वो छोटे बच्चे सब खांसने लगते थे। So they're constantly mimicking, constantly learning. And so this is the doctors, not one doctor, a group of doctors.
कोई biology
आज नहीं है जो आप कह रहे हैं।
हाँ,
कोई biology नहीं है।
नहीं, इंटरेस्ट बायोलॉजी का नहीं है। You can keep learning till the last stage. As long as your brain is active. कुछ लोग brain का development before the actually है, कुछ लोग छोड़ दो।
हम लोग दिमाग से सोच रहे हैं कई बार
So long
सीखना है।
so long your receptors are there, so long your receptors are
अब
there.
आप समझिए, ये बड़ा interesting है। इसमें further
Nothing
जाएं।
will stop you. If your receptors become good, then you can't learn.
Young
So
people
any
have
receptor,
a different kind of intelligence.
you will keep
They
learning.
have what
You
is called
even express, you keep
fluid
learning.
intelligence. You can learn a lot of things. Older people have a crystalline intelligence. So they can get deeper into something. In fact, हम लोग भी जब practice scientists थे, senior से बात करते थे, वो 5 मिनट में वो चीज बता देते जिसके लिए वो घंटों तक लगे रहते थे. So that is the kind of intelligence that comes up with age. So the ability to learn new facts quickly happens in youth. But what happens in old age is the processing is of a higher quality. मतलब कोई इसको सपोर्टिंग करने में हम लोग जब मिलते थे बड़े बड़े साइंटिस्ट हैं, तो जो भी आपको 2-3 दिनों से परेशान करिए, सालों से करिए, वो आपको फंडामेंटल प्रिंसिपल फर्स्ट प्रिंसिपल से लाके समझाते हैं. So कोई wading through complexity, you are able to do better as you grow.
How is this process of learning related to the subject matter? Whether you want to be footballer, cricketer, scientist, mathematician, musician, how does that change?
That set of synaptic junctions are created.
So,
Basically, your interest, what
you should at first change the quality of.
so as we just saw in that, so more practice makes us more comfortable with certain skills. So we keep on practicing or we keep on exercising certain things, which makes us comfortable with one thing. So there are people who have multiple skills, they are good at multiple things, but there are some people who kind of think, probably this is the only thing which I can do.
What is the basic difference?
Between
What is the basic difference in the neural networks? The information which is going from one point to another, any process depending on that, how quickly, how clearly it goes. Just the path you showed me, initially it was a very opaque path, then line, then it became highway.
right?
So for some, a child may find it very difficult to learn mathematics, but he may be very, very good at learning at music, for example. What is the difference?
So I think there are 2-3 questions that you are saying. One is कि what is the difference between कि एक एथलेटिक में अच्छा है और एक मैथमेटिक्स में अच्छा है. एक
Learning process.
नहीं वो these are two different things. एक ए में अच्छा है, एक बी में अच्छा है. दूसरा एक ये है कि जो भी अच्छे लोग हैं वो एवरेज से कैसे डिफरेंस है. तो वन इज कि सारे एवरेज से टॉप वाले कैसे डिफरेंट है. दैट्स वन डिफरेंट थिंग. एक मैथ्स में अच्छा है तो दूसरा दूसरे सब्जेक्ट में अच्छा है. तो इन दोनों में क्या फर्क है. दैट इज मोर हॉरिजॉन्टल. कोई गलत नहीं है.
I'm asking what is the basic difference in the actual process that happens.
न्यूरल लेवल
Neural
तो
level.
माइलिन वाला जो बताया था दैट इज देयर कि जो इसमें एक प्रोफेसर का नाम भूल गया. डेलिब्रेट प्रैक्टिस करके उनकी 30 साल की रिसर्च है. डेलिब्रेट प्रैक्टिस तो न्यूरल लेवल पे द कनेक्शंस व्हिच आर रिक्वायर्ड एंड टू एंड. जैसे हम मोटर स्किल जब हम ड्राइविंग कर रहे हैं तो हमें पता है कि वी आर ड्राइविंग तो एक टाइम पे वो हमारे उस सेगमेंट में चला गया है. Where we don't need conscious competence, बस वो हो रहा है, अपने आप हो रहा है. कई बार घर जाना होता है और एक पाथ से जाते हैं तो हम उसी पाथ पे चढ़ जाते हैं. ध्यान आता है कि अच्छा आज तो कहीं और जाना था, बट वो दिमाग को पता है कि ये टर्न आएगा तो फिर अनकॉन्शियसली. तो अगर हम ये नीरज चोपड़ा की वीडियो देखते हैं
तो सिर्फ एक मशीन है उसको बस ये करने में लगे हुए हैं 1 घंटे तक, सो दैट दैट पार्ट ऑफ द न्यूरल नेटवर्क इज स्ट्रेंथन टू दैट लेवल कि उसके लिए दिमाग नहीं लगाना पड़ता कि जैसे ही बॉडी को मिला कि मैंने ये हो गया हूं तो उसके लिए अगला पूरा सर्किट एंड टू एंड तैयार हो रहा है। तो वो जो माइलिन शीट का था, जो एक परफॉर्मेंस के लिए वहां पे परफॉर्म करने के लिए मेरे को जो एंड टू एंड एक चीज चाहिए, उस पे हद से ज्यादा काम किया जाता है ऑन अ डेली बेसिस।
लेकिन आपने नीरज चोपड़ा के एग्जांपल दी, नीरज चोपड़ा learns how to do that, right? But if somebody else is there in the same position, in the same machine, same age, same everything, but he doesn't learn. He cannot learn. He cannot be a good javelin thrower.
तो आप वही कह रहे हैं ना कि वो दूसरे वो किसी और चीज में होगा, तो वहां पे तो
What is the
difference
क्या है?
What
makes people different?
डिफरेंट के अलावा एक क्वेश्चन आप भी फॉर्मुलेट कर सकते हो, डूइंग द सेम थिंग व्हाई डज वन सक्सीड एंड द अदर डज,
गिफ्टेड जीनियस पर
अगर सेम मशीन है, सेम ये है, नीरज चोपड़ा ने कर दिया, आपको भी वो दे दिया जाए, आप भी करें।
Answer lies in what he said. Einstein says that I stay with the problem for long. That is the difference between the person who is doing, somebody is regularly staying with the, there's a robo stay karta.
So we all know.
And then whatever reflections come, and they are not. Some people are able to stay with long, then they continue to be expert in this. Some people are not able to do it. So you find difference between the people become expert in doing one particular job, others are not able to do it. They stay longer with the same idea to do it. Robo stays for all, he doesn't get reflection, and therefore you find. When even the expert gets reflection, environmental influence, and then he is also drops the ball. So any activity. So there is a difference between this kind of ability to stay with any situation in life, and still reflection, environmental influence will come.
I just example of this. A teacher is teaching mathematics in a classroom.
Yeah.
The method of delivery is same, subject matter is same. One child learns faster, the other one doesn't learn at all.
Yes.
So what is the difference in the processing of the two brains?
This is not known yet.
Yes.
And since you put it this way, I have created a term for this called learner resistance. So जैसे वोल्टेज करंट का रेशियो रेजिस्टेंस होता है, ऐसा लर्नर रेजिस्टेंस है। टीचर ने एक ही चीज पढ़ाई अलग अलग भी, and therefore there are people who are very bad, low resistance. Then there is somebody who is superconductor. No, then there are superconductors who learn very much faster than even what the teacher types.
Yeah.
Physically, what is the difference?
The difference is,
So
We don't know that right experiment.
Difference is this, that some people, as soon as they get interest in that particular work or particular file, others do not get that much interest. And when they don't, they doesn't get it automatically. No, वो इसलिए कुछ जैसे डॉक्यूमेंट ने कहा ना, कुछ ऐसी चीजें जो आपको इमीडिएटली कहते हैं, कुछ चीजें उनको नहीं करते, इंटरेस्ट है, जो कहते हैं इंटरेस्ट नहीं।
एक मिनट, जो हमने आपको रेजिस्टेंस वाला यूज किया था वही एग्जैक्टली है कि क्या रेजिस्टेंस ज्यादा कहाँ पे जब बहुत सारे कोलिजन्स होते हैं रास्ते में, एंड देयरफॉर द फ्लो इज रिड्यूस्ड। जो व्यक्ति डिस्ट्रैक्ट हो जाता है, कोई और चीज में हो जाता है, इज नॉट एबल टू पे अटेंशन, उसकी लर्निंग कम हो जाती है। जिस चीज में उसका अटेंशन होता है, तो आपने कहा अलग सब्जेक्ट, जिस चीज में उसका अटेंशन होता है उसमें, अब ये अटेंशन क्यों होता है वाली बातों पे हमें।
So I like to just put one perspective that consider human was a robot, okay, and robot में कुछ learning भी है, so I have created say 10 robots with the same learning, but over a period of time each robot will be having its own experiences, उसकी कुछ learning कुछ होगी, so everyone will not be having same experiences. So similarly our body, each body has its own experiences, and they are basically getting programming and learning and so on, which is basically giving us the individuality. So not each person is kind of born with the same kind of hardware and software, I would say.
ये आपने बड़ी अच्छी एग्जांपल दी रोबो वाली। ये ठीक कह रहे हैं कि अगर दो रोबो मैं बना देता हूँ और उनमें कुछ सेल्फ लर्निंग की कैपेबिलिटी हम बना सकते हैं, आर्टिफिशियल लेकिन एक रोबो में को मैं डिफरेंट एनवायरनमेंट में डाल दूंगा तो दूसरे को डिफरेंट एनवायरनमेंट डाल दूंगा, तो उन दोनों का जो अल्टीमेटली एनालिसिस है वो अलग होगी। वो दूसरे वाला रोबो को बाहर करिएगा तो नहीं कर पाएगा, उसका लर्निंग एक्सपीरियंस अलग हो गया है।
So that's the way I see it. But as sir said कि अभी हमारे पूरा clear नहीं है, so we are still kind of learning. So this is a perspective which I have.
तो मेरे एक सिंपल थ्योरी है, आज आप पढ़ा रहे हैं, ठीक है, आप सिखा रहे हैं, एक ट्रस्ट है हमारा, क्योंकि आप कल को कोई चालू यादव यूनिवर्सिटी से सेम दे रहा होता, हमको एक तरह से ब्लॉकेज आ जाता। I think the trust factor. I just wondering where does the trust factor sit in your super admin role of learning? Because it's like, software में super admin होता है, उसने अगर block कर दिया तो you cannot get into the software at all. So for me, I feel that it's like a trust factor. I trust you, I trust your knowledge, I trust your sources of information and how you put it. Therefore, I'm listening to you. Same particular presentation would be done by some Bihar University person, I'm sorry, but anyway, the unknown university, I would not be able to switch off completely. So I'm just saying that trust factor, where does that come?
Is it trust or it kind of it links with your existing system and it
trust.
it's more than
I am giving example of that. मैं कहता हूँ मैं IIT में फैकल्टी का मेरी इज्जत इतनी हो जाती है, मैं इंदिरा गांधी यूनिवर्सिटी में हूँ।
तो मैं तो सर वो IIT और ITI में ये डिफरेंस है, आई का डिफरेंस है, लेकिन पूरा जमीन आपका अच्छे है। तो I'm just wondering where does that, आपने जैसे वो ब्रेन का दिखाया ना, सब कुछ इमोशन बताया, वो ट्रस्ट इमोशन में आएगा या कहीं और आएगा?
नहीं, इमोशन में ही आएगा, लेकिन it is जो मैंने कहा, it is the trust that you have is the sum of all the experiences you have.
Yeah, it's sitting at the top
Right,
side.
as a heuristic. जो मैंने कहा था कि जो सबसे यूज रूल है वो, तो आपने को ये सिखा दिया गया है, आपने सीख लिया है कि ये चीजें ट्रस्टवर्दी है, ये चीजें नहीं है, वो वाली बात हो जाए।
So trust is basically your upper layer, where it says कि based upon my previous experiences, I'm confident कि this situation would be like this. So that is basically trust. So वो
information आपको दे रहे कि IIT में ये सेकंड लेवल में आता है जब वो एक्चुअल चीज आपके दिमाग में पड़े। If it clicks, then IIT is good, yeah, IIT is good. But first level जो बाहर की information है ना आपको, that influences the mind. इसीलिए most of research is being done how to influence the masses. ये जो first information based जो जाता है, IIT is US, IIT is वो उस यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़ा रहा है, he also feels confident, oh I am IIT product. So ये सारा first level information है, which goes to grade and it thinks yes it must be. तो जब next level जो actual में आता है, if it doesn't click, then you say oh बेकार की चीज।
आज आपका लेक्चर बड़ा स्टिमुलेटिंग था, मैं इनका लेक्चर बड़ा स्टिमुलेटिंग था, it has involved so much। आज बड़ा अच्छा आपने
see अभी टेक्नोलॉजी वाला पार्ट आएगा, so probably you find
Why is it said that psychedelics are able to increase neuroplasticity in a person?
it's so sorry.
Psychedelics are said to be able to increase neuroplasticity in a person. Particularly induced.
क्या चीज में
Psychedelic को समझ नहीं आया।
न्यूरोप्लास्टिसिटी इंक्रीज होती है, ऐसा क्यों?
So chemicals में certain
नहीं, but ये कोई एस्टैब्लिश हुआ है,
मतलब मैंने बहुत सारा एक
ये तो problem with psychedelic drugs is that people imagine and they say and they report something. I am not sure because हम लोग का और drugs के बारे में LSD, LSD सब लोगों ने करा हुआ है। The point is, by and large, from my knowledge, there is clear-cut evidence that these drugs, obviously, sometimes they stimulate creativity because they reduce some of your inhibitions. See, हमारी problem क्या होती है? हम creativity इसमें नहीं कर पाते because we get drawn to the real world. नहीं. These psychedelic drugs somehow liberate you out of that and allow you to think like what Einstein thought or whatever else. But I don't think there is a very anywhere concrete evidence कि they have helped.
And when you can paper लिखना था उसके बाद
नहीं, वो paper तो छाप सकते हैं, anybody can write a paper and get it published. What I am saying is take an accepted body of knowledge. Accepted body of knowledge में अभी ऐसा कहीं नहीं आ रहा है कि psychedelic, psychotropic ये वो drugs से enhance होता है. They affect the brain is all right. But whether they affect it in a positive sense to make you a better thinker, etc., is not known. क्योंकि हमारा इंटरेस्ट है इन एंशियंट रोम कोई अगर इंटरेस्टिंग डिस्कशन होना होता था तो एक राउंड में डिस्कशन होता था विदाउट एनी अल्कोहल फिर एक राउंड में डिस्कशन होता था एवरीबॉडी ड्रिंकिंग अल्कोहल दे वुड से कि दोनों में कहां कंसिस्टेंसी है उसको असली बात है
लेकिन उनको जांचना कौन था अल्कोहल पिए वाला या पिए वाला
So, on that, basically, see, I give you permission, I would like to share what are various emotions. People were sitting in a bar, late evening. Somebody said, what is irritation? A lot of discussion took place. Everybody in the bar, in the drink, gave his or her opinion about what is irritation. One wise guy got up after some time, and it was already 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning. He went to the phone, dialed a random number, and said, "Is John there?" The person on the other end of the line said, "It's hello time to call wrong number. This is not." He put the phone down and said, "Look, I have got the guy irritated." 10 minutes later, another round of drink, etc., etc. Then this, now what was the next stage? Aggravation. And the same guys got up and said, "Now I'll show you what is aggravation." He went to the phone, dialed the same number, and it's John there now. The guy was really aggravated, and he said, he already began to curse him. He put the phone down, he said, "Look, I got the guy aggravated." And what was the next stage? Frustration. So another round of drink, and so on and so forth. And then they said, "Okay, let me show you what is frustration." Went to the phone, called the same line again, and said, "I am John, was there a phone call for me?"
That's true.
It's very good you brought a nice break with this. I have a whole series of stories. Very simple. You tell
We
somebody.
should have a storytelling session on.
Right. So, so if you tell somebody you're teaching fraction, that is fraction सीखना मुश्किल है. ऐसे सीखने का देखो, it depends upon how you teach it. Now, if you try to teach a set of people who are drunk, is 2 upon 3 greater or is 4 upon 5 greater? They will be able to answer. But you say if 2 bottles between 3 people or 4 bottles between 5 people, they don't know the answer.
That's
So the question is, how do you put a thing in context?
So just wanted to say about what you were saying. So there are a lot of misinformation also spread. Generally, I think a misconception है कि we use only 10% of our brain, okay, which is not correct. We use all 100% of our brain, and this misconception has come because of certain reasons. But basically, these drug companies or marketing companies, they want us to believe on this just to make their product sell. They want to make us believe कि इसी तरह से हम 10% को बढ़ा सकते हैं so that we can become more powerful. But that's not the case. So, just like to counter to this, learnings and emotions are essential elements of learning, as we all know that. Without emotion, there is no curiosity, no attention, no learning, and no memory. Emotions can facilitate or hinder learning. Positive emotions can arouse students' engagement and promote academic skills. Negative emotions, on the other hand, distract students from learning. So, emotional environment plays very important role in this learning, and significant consequences of teachers' emotions on students' emotions. So, we have some negative emotions and some positive emotions, and negative emotions are treated as like a threat, and positive emotions are treated like reward. So, negative emotions lead to disengagement, and positive emotions lead to engagement in the class. So SCARF is a model. I will just like to say, in the interest of time, I will just like to mention this is an engagement model, and I have adopted this for learning kind of scenario. So S stands for status, basically how you feel among given kind of set of people. Certainty is about our future, what actions we need to take. A is for autonomy, whether I am allowing the person to take their own decisions. Then relatedness, whether you are feeling safe in that environment. And fairness is basically whether I have confidence that I am being treated fairly. So this staff model is something which can be applied for different streams, even for management, team management, and any kind of environment where we can look for engagement versus disengagement. And handling emotions, basically, we need to perceive, understand, reason, and manage. And that's where the concept of emotional uh, intelligence comes in. What is emotional intelligence? Is basically ability to identify, manage, and one's own emotions, and as well as emotions of others. It was a concept introduced by Daniel Goleman, and it's considered to be very, very critical for one's success. Just wanted to present this uh, uh, model. So if I put it on two axes, self versus others, and emotions, whether I have knowledge versus control. So this is basically summary of your emotion intelligence. Whether you have self-awareness and self-management, you are able to manage your own emotions and control in terms of others' emotions, whether you have social awareness, empathy or not. And the second part is whether you are able to control those emotions. So
बैक वाला क्या है? इससे पीछे वाले स्लाइड,
कौन सी?
इससे पीछे वाले स्लाइड नहीं, जहाँ आपने वो बॉक्स बताया है नेगेटिव पॉजिटिव
This one?
स्कार्फ वाले,
Yes, this is scar.
these are the negative, these are the threats
Yeah, so these are the situations which will lead to disengagement.
which will lead to the negative emotion.
These will lead to negative generation of negative emotions, and especially these are basically all the examples from a kind of a learning environment. एक education environment में these are I try to basically bring in situations which typically happen, so which can be kind of negative, which can kind of withdraw students from learning, and these are positive things which you can do in a positive way to basically make people more students more engaged.
But what is the role of critical criticism in this process? Is it always negative emotions, or it leads to some kind of positivity also?
Criticism.
Criticism.
Yes. So
Because
criticism.
we have a normal process of teaching and learning.
Yes.
Somewhere it's very encouraging, somewhere it's critical, etc. Well, sometimes criticism leads to complete negation, or it's a positive aspect.
So it's a basically how we give a negative feedback to the person. I think that's a question. When we want to kind of give a feedback, so how we give that negative feedback so that a person considers it is for his
One
own.
is about the individual, other is about the subject. Now we talk of
This
critical
is about the individual. ये बात कर रहे हैं
Individual.
learner engagement को लेकर।
individual.
आप बात कर रहे हैं critical thinking subject matter की।
हाँ।
कि
Critical
बच्चों ने
thinking
जो
is-
है,
मैं दोनों के बात एक तो individual criticism है, and at some time it takes you to negative things. Sometimes it makes you realize that yes, it needs to be changed. Then it takes in positive.
So basically, as a person who I am interacting when I am interacting with a person, I need to understand the mental state.
The whole process of development of young child to the adult,
Right.
criticism is a part and parcel of it.
So probably
And
I
then
am
you
not
find
from a
that there is
teaching
a
background.
change in the system.
I'm probably very weak on probably that, but generally teachers have that understanding ki what is happening in their students' mind, what time, what feedback is to be given, so that they are receptive of what is being told.
Therefore, they call it constructive criticism
Right.
and destructive criticism. They are the two definitions.
So they need to consider it as a kind of opportunities for improvement
Constructive
rather
criticism
than
might lead to positive
rather than
aspects.
something being criticized. So here we are talking.
ये इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस तो बताया वो एक आजकल इमोशनल क्वेश्चन की बात हो
जी
रही
जी
है।
तो EQ is basically emotional intelligence only. EQ basically जैसे IQ इंटेलिजेंस को आप कहते हैं जनरल इंटेलिजेंस, तो उसको आप IQ कहते हैं. There is a score given to IQ. मतलब इंटेलिजेंस को स्कोर देने के लिए एक IQ स्कोर होता है. Similarly, EQ एक concept को ले आए हैं इकोनॉमिक, but probably it's more to refer to this emotional intelligence, which is basically talking about emotions.
To add attention, they use that word quotient. There is no quotient. It is a broad descriptor of emotional facility, activity, whatever. Intelligence quotient is a defined ratio of the mental age to the cognitive age. That's why it's called a quotient. So 100 upon 100 means you are normal. More than 100 means you are better than average. Less than 100 means you are less than average. In EQ there is no quotient. It is broadly a whole set of emotional qualities which you are referring to. But they use that word quotient just to get attention.
Okay, so now we move to the next part, second section, session 2, which is about brain augmentation. So the question is, why augment brain? Now, what's the need of thinking about augmenting the brain? After all, we are trying to emulate brain through artificial intelligence. We are trying to kind of make computers understand and behave like our brain. And now we are talking about augmenting the brain. So what is the need of that? So while computers, we want to make them behave like brains, but they also give us certain things which give us feeling of what the limitations the brain has. The speed of information processing, is, we know that the calculations or the other processing of information is not as fast as what computers can do. Sharing of thoughts. Computers can easily share their thoughts, and which is possibly not there through our brains. Memory storage, we know that it's a kind of a tend. We tend to forget a lot of things, but computers जो उन्होंने process किया है उनके पास एक intact पड़ा हुआ है. Learning new skills, that's something as we discussed, neuroplasticity, a lot of practice, time and so on. But computers, एक नया program load किया हमने और computer is ready to take up new actions, new things.
How does it share your thoughts?
Sharing your thoughts, computers can exchange very easily messages.
The dynamic studio.
जब हम चाहते हैं तब कर सकते हैं.
Computer is connected.
Computers connect, so they keep on exchanging. मतलब हम दिन भर मेल्स exchange करते रहते हैं.
Until they keep on getting signals, and signals are normally sent either verbally or physically.
So
my point is, computers, how does the share? Thoughts are in my mind. वो कहता है ना, yeah, you can control me, but you can't control my mind. So that's the kind of a thing. Thoughts are in the mind. It gets expressed through several means. How does it takes it?
So the computer shares expressed thoughts.
Express thoughts, yes, exactly.
But Elon Musk is preparing a chip. No, Elon Musk is preparing a chip.
Express thought also spoken or written or touched, any. It's not.
But see, it's possible कि अगर देखो
चिप बना दी है जो कि आप अपने बिना कोई हाथ पैर चलाए
Yes,
कीबोर्ड चला सकते हैं, माउस चला सकते हैं, सब चला सकते हैं.
So मतलब if I have access to another computer, I can access all what is there in that computer. So, but that's not possible between two humans. I can't understand. I cannot kind of. मैं एक थोड़ा सा एक gut feeling आ सकती है मेरे को कि आप इस समय ये सोच रहे होंगे, but actually में क्या है? Probably we can't. So information loss is in communication. हमारे दिमाग में कुछ होता है, but उसको हम जब शेयर करने जाते हैं verbally, so only 10% or 20% of that gets passed on. But in case of computers, जो भी होगा वो आपको पूरा as it is चला जाएगा. So it is probably related to these two together. And sensory limits, I think we discussed earlier that there are certain limits which our senses have. So imagine there is a hotel where your favorite dish gets served the moment you start thinking about it. Or you could control your computer's mouse with your brain instead of your hand. Or you forgot where you left your keys and rewind your memory to find where you last saw that. Or think of a patient with spinal cord injury walking again by using brain implants like a pacemaker for heart. So all these scenarios look to be science fiction, but these are just some of the complex applications that neurotechnology is going to bring to us in coming decades. And that's basically going to be possible through our understanding of brain through various neuroscience studies. So what is neurotechnology?
जैसे जो second point है moving the mouse pointer using our eye tracking, already some work has been done on that, and there are successful experiments in which with the help of just looking at the mouse pointer, people they have eye tracking. And this eye tracking, very recently, 2-3 days ago, there was a conference in Turkey. I also presented DCI there. So there is this research by a girl there, and Dr. J will be interested. What she did 3 studies on autism people to understand their attention span on a website. So, and made a comparative study of that when the autism person looks at a website, which of the portions of that website they focus more. So the bigger dots will show the content on which focus, and then there are lines that I shifted from this point to this point, how closely. So means this field is progressing at a quite good speed.
About the keys, there was a small article write-up on this. That you forget where you kept the key. It's a sort of a dementia, which is not progressive dementia, but it's a kind of a dementia which doesn't enable you to rewind. Where did you keep your key? But it's not a progressive one. It's set and it can come.
Right, sir. So it could be because of dementia, but also I think even if a person is not kind of suffering from dementia, we keep on forgetting that ये चीज मैंने कहाँ रख दी मेरे को याद नहीं आ रहा. So that's so neurotechnology is basically the integration of technical components in the nervous system. So we talk about the whole nervous system and how we kind of have a connect with the methods and devices which interface with the brain to monitor or moderate the neural activity. Technology is enabling visualization of brain processes and also control repair and improve its functions. So let's move forward. So what are the different objectives because of this neurotechnology? Understand what is happening in the brain. So I can try to find out what are the emotions happening in the brain currently. And that will basically throw a lot of possibilities if I know what is happening in the brain. Understand what controls the brain wants to apply on the body. So in a kind of a person who is kind of a paralytic person who is not able to kind of move his limbs because of his condition, then by knowing what he wants to do, I can kind of translate those emotions into the actual actions by through some artificial limbs. So that is the objective 1. Then objective 2 could be manipulate the neural activity. जो मेरे brain में चल रहा है उसको मैं किस so enhance or diminish something happening in the brain. It could be of huge help in the medical field for the different ailments which happen due to the neural disorders. Like treating the Parkinson's disease by using a technique called DBS or deep brain stimulation, or use of ultrasound for treating tremors. I think in our group also somebody had shared recently a kind of how tremors can be treated using ultrasound. So that was interesting one. Objective 3 is augmenting the cognitive abilities. That's what we were talking. That we can have some devices implanted which could make us smarter, improve our memory, or help in decision making. And eventually provide an extension of the human mind, the concept which is called as human augmentism or transhumanism. So again, obviously this is something futuristic, but there are possibilities and work happening in these directions. So the impact of neurotechnology, the field of technology is very much in its infancy. We starting में हैं जैसे सर लोग saying, then but dramatic changes are the way. People like Elon Musk, they are very bullish on this. Although I'm not very big fan of Elon Musk, but he makes a lot of claims and does a lot of marketing. But according to people like him, it may even one day be possible provide a basis for humanity to merge with artificial intelligence. And who knows, someday we may get a brain implant which will make us more smart than Einstein. So that is just kind of fancy. So let's talk about how this technology works. So we'll talk about certain basics. The electrical brain, sir also mentioned that like, a lot of electrical happening which is happening in our brain. So we have discussed that we have 86 billion neurons and 10,000 other connections. But brain controls our body activities through electrochemical signals. And that's what we were discussing, going from neurons to different parts. This brain activity never stops even during sleep. अब हम जब सोते भी हैं तो भी हमारा ब्रेन एक्टिव रहता है. So it's not like कि बाकी बॉडी हमारी सो गई है, but still there are a lot of parts of the body like digestion, etc. This all that keeps working, and the brain also keeps working. The neurons create and send more messages than all the phones in the entire world. So इतने ज़्यादा मतलब messages जाते हैं, signals जाते हैं, which are more than what we have in the whole telecom network for the world.
So all those are in the form of the spams or some.
So that's all part of communication. So action potentials, basically these are the messages which can get exchanged across neurons. So brain is connected to the rest of the body organs and muscles through nerves. So we talked about brain, and then we have this spinal cord, and all these nerves are spread across the body, and brain is connected to all the body parts. And when brain wants to move hand, it sends a signal to the brain. वो signal देगा muscle को to move that. So it is in the form of an electrical impulse. So this is kind of the resting state of the neuron voltage, which is around minus 80 volt, millivolt, and it goes up and then comes down. So this causes the impulse, and that impulse get passed on to the complete neuron chain or neural pathway. So here you can see that charge is being passed on to the next neuron through the axon. So how fast are these signals? Basically, not all information is very important. So, like if you have a shadow cut or you touch an hot object, then or insect bite, this travels faster than the pain in your kind of stomach. जो स्टमक का पेन है वो थोड़ा स्लो जाएगा, जबकि जो आपके टच और ऐसे एक्सपीरियंसेस हैं उनके सिग्नल्स काफी फास्ट होते हैं. So insect bite, the signal from your skin to the brain goes at more than 240 kilometers per hour. but the command है brain की to kind of retract the muscles, that is going at more than 320 kilometers per hour.
When they say that it travels 240 kilometers or some kilometers, how they measure it?
How they measure it? So there are different experiments.
Truth है उन्होंने कहा सब
These are actually measured things. So there are different ways how to measure. There are a lot of equipment which is developed in kind of experimenting.
इसका रिवर्स जैसे सिग्नल्स जाते हैं बट इसका रोबोटिक्स का एप्लीकेशन हुआ है क्या कि मतलब सिग्नल्स बेस किए उसमें मतलब रोबोट को सेंसिटिव करेगी
नहीं, it's not robots. This is for human body.
हाँ नहीं ह्यूमन बॉडी हम कह रहे हैं कि इसी को रोबोटिक्स को एक्चुअल बनाने के लिए मोर
ये रोबोट्स के केस में तो जो आपके सिग्नल होंगे वो तो इलेक्ट्रिकल सिग्नल होंगे विच आर डायरेक्टली कनेक्टेड, वो तो वायर से वायर डायरेक्टली कनेक्टेड होंगे. बट हियर
इस लेवल पे उसके स्किन को कॉलेज को मटेरियल से या और उस पे सिग्नल्स दिया जाए तो कैन रोबोट कैन डू मतलब एक्सपेरिमेंट में ऐसे कि वो रोबोट कैन सेंस द ब्रेन हाउस का जो भी मतलब बनाया.
yes, so that is what we are going to conclude कि जो आपका ब्रेन है, जो हम कह रहे हैं ना आपकी जो आर्टिफिशियल लिम्ब है उसको कंट्रोल करना है, तो वो नहीं सिग्नल्स को कैच करती है. तो we'll just talk about that. And kinesthesia, which is basically, I think sir was mentioning, that sense of balancing. जैसे मैं कहीं जा रहा हूँ अचानक ठोकर लग के मैं गिरता हूँ तो मैं I don't just flatly fall, but I kind of balance myself quickly, and that's what is basically these are the kind of signals which are the fastest ones. So there is a small video which I would like to show how action and potential works in our body.
And I want to do some demonstration. You guys want to see some? All right. So I need a volunteer. So right before, what is your name? All right, Sam. I'm going to record from your brain. Have you had this before? Okay. All right. I need you to stick out your arm for science. Roll up your sleeve a bit. All right. And so what I'm going to do, I'm putting electrodes on your arm. You're probably wondering, I just said I'm going to record from your brain. What am I doing with your arm? Well, you have about 80 billion neurons inside your brain right now. They're sending electrical messages back and forth, chemical messages. But some of your neurons right here in your motor cortex are going to send messages down when you move your arm like this. You go down across your corpus callosum, down onto your spinal cord, to the lower motor neuron, out to your muscles here, and that is electrical discharge. It's going to be picked up by these electrodes right here, and we're going to be able to listen to exactly what your brain is going to be doing. So I'm going to turn this on for a second. You ever heard what your brain sounds like? All right, let's turn it on. So go ahead, whenever you go ahead and squeeze your hand. All right, so what you're listening to, so this is your motor units that are happening right here. Okay, so let's take a look at it as well. I'm going to stand over here. I'm going to open up our app here. So now I want you to squeeze. Yeah, so right here, these are the motor units that are happening from her spinal cord out to her muscle right here. And as she's doing it, you're seeing the electrical activity is happening here. You give a click here and try to see one of them. So keep doing it really, really hard. Yeah, so now we pause at one motor action potential that's happening right now inside of your brain. Okay. You guys want to see some more? All right. That's interesting, but let's get it better. Okay. I need one more volunteer. Okay. What is your name, sir? Miguel. All right. You're going to stand right here. So Miguel, when you're moving your arm like this, your brain is sending a signal down to your muscles right here. I want you to move your arm as well. All right. So your brain is going to send a signal down to your muscles. And so it turns out that there is a nerve that's right here that runs up here that innervates these three fingers. And it's close enough to the skin that we might be able to stimulate that. So that we can do is copy your brain signals going out to your hand and inject it into your hand so that your hand will move when your brain tells your hand to move. And so in a sense, she will take away your free will and you will no longer have any control over this hand, okay? You with me? All right, so I need to hook you up. All right, so I'm gonna find your ulnar nerve. It's probably right around here. You don't know what you're signing up for when you come up with. So now I'm going to move away and we're going to plug it into our human-to-human interface over here. Okay, so Sam wants you to squeeze your hand again. All right, do it again. All right, perfect. So now I'm going to hook you up over here so that you get this. It's going to feel a little bit weird at first. It's going to feel like when you lose your free will and someone else becomes your agent, it does feel a bit strange. So I want you to relax your hand. All right, Sam, you're with me. All right, so you're gonna squeeze. If I can turn on this, go ahead and give it a squeeze. All right. So now, are you ready to go?
Ready as hell.
Okay, so I've turned it on. So go ahead and turn your hand. Do you feel that a little bit? Okay, do it again. A little bit. Okay, so relax. So hit it again. Okay. Oh, perfect. All right, so relax. Do it again. All right, so now. All right, so right now, your brain is controlling your arm and it's also controlling his arm. So go ahead and just do it one more time. All right, so that's perfect. So now, what would happen if I took over my control of your hand? And so just relax your hand. What happens? Nothing. Why not? Because the brain has to do it. Now you do it again. All right, that's perfect. All right, well, thank you guys for being such a good sport.
So, this was basically how the action potential gets transmitted in humans, and this is not just humans. This is possible to get noticed in the insects as well. So, can I take one more? Or I should move. I do just a small clip.
रामश्याम किसको कोई दिखाता है? रामश्याम की मूवी थी ना, एक थप्पड़ मारता है दूसरे को.
So today we're not going to be recording from our brains, but we're going to be recording from the brains of these cockroaches. Each one of these hairs has a neuron beneath it. And the job of the neuron is to sort of send information to the brain about vibration and wind. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy up and just sort of snip off his leg. And it's still going to be sending information about touching it, going to the brain. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take this leg and I'm going to place it on top of the spider box. Right now we're using cockroach, we can use any insect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place 2 of the pins inside the leg. We're going to be able to record those neurons. So now, if I turn on the spider box, you should be able to hear what those neurons sound like. These are the same things that are happening in your brain. 100 billion cells all making this popping noise right now. If you take a look at it, how this waveform looks. So when I touch the leg, that activity you're seeing are the neurons communicating with each other using these X potentials or spikes. This is the basic currency of the brain. It's called spike. And it's the way information gets passed by. So everything that you see and everything that you hear all comes into the brain using these spikes. You can also stimulate the brain to see exactly how the brain sort of sends information out to the muscle. We use the same thing. We use spikes to sort of communicate with our muscles and muscles move. So how this is going to work is we're going to be able to listen or actually watch what happens when we play music through our iPod into the cockroach leg. So how does this work is that the fact that when you have your earbuds in your ears, current is passing by a magnet, which is causing it to vibrate, which here echoes against a tone, which allows you to hear it. That same current is the current that we use inside of our brain. So by sending that into the cockroach leg, we can actually get the muscles to move.
So it's the same thing, the forests are talking to each other, forest trees are talking.
Right. So this is basically a communication through action potentials, which happens in humans, it happens in insects and other kind of other living things. This also happens in plants. So due to paucity of time, probably I will not cover that. But this is kind of I can share this video, which you can see later on, where it shows how plants exchange action potentials. जो छुई हुई I think आप सबने देखा होगा. So it shows कि कैसे उसको टच करने पे क्या एक्शन पोटेंशियल इन्वोक होते हैं, and then it basically what actions it takes to kind of impact. So some actions are taken by that. Also, there are certain plants which are carnivorous. You can insect and then it counts what is the basically duration for which the insect has been there on that particular plant, and based upon that it closes that. And then and not only that, they can also exchange signals. एक प्लांट पे कुछ एक्शन पोटेंशियल इन्वोक हुआ, that get can be passed on to the other plant. So this is a very interesting video. Probably I will share it separately with all of you. So rain is a great energy hopper. Generation of these action potentials needs a lot of energy. So processing and transmitting information through electrical signals needs about 0.3 unit, basically around 300 kilowatts, 0.3 kilowatt per day. That's around 12 watts of a bulb. So एक अगर 12 watt के bulb को अगर पूरे दिन use करें, that kind of energy is used by brain to kind of have all this communication. So for that, they need a lot of energy, which it gets from glucose and oxygen, which it gets, and that it gets passed on to brain through blood. So if the blood supply to the brain is cut off or disrupted, like during stroke or head injury, neurons start shutting down very quickly. So there are other parts of body which have still remain connected to source of energy, which they can survive even if they don't get food for some time. But if the brain doesn't get food or energy, even for short duration, then the whole system will collapse. The brain doesn't kind of store any fat. There's no fat stored in brain. The other parts of the body kind of store fat, which they can use if the need arises. So the next concept, apart from action potential, which is of brain waves. So brain waves are actually for real. हम लोगों को शायद we think कि थोड़ा एक मैथमेटिकल सी चीज है, but actually these are real. They communicate via electrical impulses, and these actually happen like a wave. These are oscillating electrical voltages raising just a few millionth of voltages, and these can be measured and plotted using appropriate devices. So there are different types of neurowaves.
You can measure and plot all those approximately.
Right. So that is what EEGs sir was mentioning.
There is some study in Stanford about measuring waves, also measuring the person's intention of terrorism.
Of
Terrorism.
yes. So well, as we said, like we can read some person's brain. We can try to find out what kind of
They are working on
thoughts.
it in details.
Like there is this, nobody now talks about Gillian's photography, that they used to take the picture of aura. So is it related somewhat with that?
See,
जैसे हम लोग माइकोलॉजिकल फीचर्स को देखते हैं, ऑरा है, चाहे और फीचर जैसा प्रभा मंडल, आभा मंडल जिसको कहते हैं.
so brain waves, वही मैं कह रहा हूँ कि जो कहा जाता है, these are real. मतलब ये scientifically भी मतलब these are being used also. So
फोटोग्राफी से ऐसा कहा गया था कि वो आपका ऑरा they had taken pics of those aura.
probably possible, but sorry,
and they say that the rights आपका aura given to the black person at time finally.
so that explains कि mind slow down हो गया था, kind of about to close. So the frequency and nature of brain waves depends on the brain activity at the moment. इस समय क्या चल रहा है brain में, and टिपिकली उनको 5 कैटेगरीज में डिवाइड किया गया है. There are various methods. So these are the 5 categories. ऊपर जो सबसे ऊपर है हमारा गामा वेव, which are more than 35 hertz इनकी frequency, and these are basically when intense concentration and learning is happening. So in that situation, I will be having gamma waves. Then similarly, when I am doing a problem solving and engaging with others, then it is going to be the beta waves, which is 12 to 35 hertz. When I am relaxing and recharging, then these are alpha waves. And when I am dreaming or autopilot state, theta, and when I am deep, dreamless sleep, then it is the delta wave, which is the lowest frequency. So depending upon what kind of neural activity is happening in the brain, my brain waves will change.
Sir, so basically, by any chance, properly learning and gamma is also learning and beta is also learning.
So depends what kind of learning you are having. कौन से learning आप जैसे ये बताया ना थीटा में. So learning could be happening on a simple way. अगर आप कुछ वो मतलब meditation type का कुछ learning हो रही है आपकी, and then this is basically involving complex topics को आप बहुत concentrate करके वहाँ पे आप कुछ study कर रहे हो, नया subject study कर रहे हो. Types of learning.
So data simply means there is no mind, which is the ultimate goal of dhyan and meditation. No mind.
Well, it's relaxed. It's basically kind of
It's so much relaxed that no activity of mind is happening.
right.
So no mind.
So this could be for one part, but there could be other parts which would be kind of acting, still acting. So it's not like कि पूरे brain में हमारी ये waves चल रही होंगी. So again, this is important to understand that it's not like we are talking about these brains. These are basically for some part of the brain, but other parts of the brain could be still very much active.
So, sorry. So, are we saying the different part of the brain can be at that different brainwave state at that time?
Different activity level. So किसी part के अगर वहाँ पे neurons ज़्यादा active हैं, तो definitely वहाँ की waves ज़्यादा होंगी. So there was a person, Dr. Hans Berger, who was a German psychiatrist, and he was basically very much fascinated by this experience of telepathy. He had a kind of a fall from horse riding when he was doing, and at that time itself, his sister got some kind of an inclination that he is under danger. So he was very much fascinated by that, and he started kind of trying to explore this field further. He studied medicine. He was actually wanted to be a astronomer, but he changed his line and then he started studying medicine. And he worked in the field of psychiatry and neurology, and he recorded brain waves for the first time in 1924. Although he was not able to kind of give a scientific reason of these waves, but he was able to record these brain waves in 1924, and he developed what we today call as EEG or electroencephalography. So basically, EEG is kind of a mesh of electrodes which are put on your brain at different places on your brain, and these electrodes basically try to measure the local potential voltage in that area of the brain. So each will give you different potentials. So this is a basically non-invasive BCI. You are not kind of inserting something inside your brain. So this is non-invasive. And in this case, brain's electrical activity is measured using small electrodes. These can be kind of seen. So this gets recorded something like this, lot of waves. and these recordings can be analyzed later to find out what is happening in your brain. So in China, there are already some experiments happening where they are basically using these EEG devices. So what you see on this, on the forehead of this girl is basically an EEG device. So rather than just a kind of full mash of electrodes, they have kind of tried to make it a kind of a concise and put it as a headgear and to see what is the so it's a cap-like EEG device, and you can try to find out how the lecture is being received by the students. There are a lot of companies who are already working a lot in this. These are names of the company. Emotive is a very active one. So EEG is why I talk about this is basically obviously EEG is being used for treating medical conditions. So this is one non-medical use which I kind of found, and obviously there are people who are trying to find out to use it for other conditions, other applications as well. But this was one, so I thought of sharing it with you. So EEG-based learning environment is also another one.
थोड़ा एक्सप्लोर करके इसका कॉस्ट पता करिएगा.
So this is in the range of about within a lakh. जो Indian, and these are again there's a huge range of prices. So it goes from 50,000 to multiple lakhs. So जो actually scientific use के लिए करते हैं, they go for higher level of version. But जो cheaper versions are also available.
That's very important because it will show the rate at which it's spread.
Yes.
See, आज अगर 50,000 एक लाख है,
Yes.
4 साल में 500 रुपए है.
Obviously it can come down.
और हर आदमी ऐसे गवर्नमेंट के सब पे लगा दे.
Right.
ऑफिस आओगे तो ये जरूरी है पहले के काम.
So I happened to talk to a student who was working in IIT Delhi, and they were working on something like how brain works in case of if you are doing meditation, what happens in the brain. So he was working on that study. Because of some reasons he had to leave that study, but he was telling me that there are different devices, different such headgears available. And I had also attended an exhibition where they were kind of where they were showing these kind of
ओपन सोर्स हार्डवेयर आर्डिनो वगैरह को यूज करते हैं जो भी डिवाइसेस बनाए हैं लाइक दैट में.
हाँ, मैं किस प्राइस रेंज पे हैं आज?
I'll try to find out.
नहीं ठीक है.
तो आईफोन पे ठीक से कम ही होगा.
यही तो मैं सोच रहा हूँ. सी जैसे कई तो ऑफिस में ड्रेस कोड होता है. ये ड्रेस कोड का ऑफिस में आइए लगाओ.
उसका तोड़ भी मिला करेगा फिर कहीं जाने का. साथ में लगा के वो ऐसे सिग्नल दे देगा.
But again, जैसे iPhone 15 आपने कहा, so hardware price is one. The bigger issue is the software. And software is basically what is basically going to lead you to these results. क्योंकि आपके ब्रेन की जो वेव्स हैं उनको कैसे इंटरप्रेट करना है, किस रीजन से कौन सा सिग्नल आ रहा है उसको कैसे करना है, दैट इज द बिगेस्ट चैलेंज. हार्डवेयर इज वेरी चीप. हार्डवेयर तो आपको इजीली
See, many of these things are published in scientific journals from which people can pick up.
sorry.
Yes, and many of these things are published in scientific journals from which you can pick up and hire a programmer to do it. See, हम लोगों ने जब किया अपनी रिसर्च प्रॉब्लम के लिए प्रोग्राम हम ही लोग लिखते थे because we knew the problem in it. So therefore, once the model is available and those standards have been done, कि ये frequency ये कहलाती है, and then you will create your own thing. So I'm looking at the explosion.
Right. So as more studies happen, people will be able to kind of find out more.
Yeah.
The good thing is, what has been found so far is कि if I want to move my hand, the kind of patterns which are there, which happen uniformly across people. So it's not like कि मैं अगर hand ऊपर करना चाहता हूँ तो मेरे hand पैटर्न कुछ होगा, आपका पैटर्न कुछ और होगा, किसी और का कुछ और होगा. So that is basically a enabling factor towards use of this technology. Otherwise हर एक के लिए तो मैं kind of इतना research नहीं कर सकती. So and again like what we talked about moving cursor using your brain waves. So again that means thinking कि मैं लेफ्ट मूव कर रहा हूँ, राइट मूव कर रहा हूँ, ऊपर, और जब मैं सोचता भी हूँ तो मतलब उसमें मेरे क्या क्या थॉट्स जाते हैं, और उसके मतलब लाइक व्हेन आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट सो मच ऑफ सिग्नल, मेरे ब्रेन में तो बहुत सारे आपके इमोशंस आते हैं, तो वो उस सिग्नल्स में क्या करप्शन आ रहा है, मीन्स क्या नॉइज आ रहा है, उस नॉइज को निकालना एंड देन इंटरप्रेटिंग दैट. सो दैट्स बेसिकली द बिगर चैलेंज. So this is one more study which I found where they are trying to kind of create a learning environment. Basically, you create a online kind of system where you try to understand what is happening in the mind of a person, mind of a student. So when you are presenting some questions to a student, how comfortable or uncomfortable a student feels, based upon that you present the next question to that person. So this is kind of contrasting with कि जहाँ पे आपने पहले उसका आंसर देखा और उसके आंसर के बेसिस पे आपने उसको नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन प्रोवाइड किया. तो अडेप्टिवनेस बेस्ड अपॉन व्हाट काइंड ऑफ एक्शन इज हैपनिंग इनसाइड द ब्रेन ऑफ अ पर्सन. This is the next technology which is fMRI, functional magnetic resonance. So as I was mentioning, this is the newest thing, and this is basically enabling us to find out what actions are happening inside your brain. So these are basically different brain regions, and at which activity when I'm doing, then which part of the brain gets activated. That can be analyzed by using this technique. But the challenge in this is कि you have to kind of use a kind of a specific equipment. तो एक बड़ी सी आपको मशीन के अंदर ले जाके तब वहाँ पे आप अपने ब्रेन को मॉनिटर कर सकते हैं. But with the EEG you have that flexibility कि आप कहीं पे भी in a practical kind of a normal scenario you can do this. So different challenges with different technologies. Again, this is a non-invasive technology, and from here we move quickly. So non-medical usages, I think sir was also highlighting कि we can probably try to find out one's aptitude by using his brain scan, and that is something मतलब आज की डेट में हम जैसे different entrance tests करते हैं, तो उसकी जगह probably we can try to find out what is the aptitude of a person by using his brain scan and then kind of say that you are good, you will be good for this field or that field. But yeah, like again, this is in a very initial stage. People are still studying and trying to make kind of conclusive results of it. There are a lot of other technologies. Focus ultrasound is one, which basically I was talking about. Group में भी हमारा I think somebody had shared for handling the tremors. This ultrasound technology we use. So I'll not go through all of these. You can find out a lot of details about these technologies on net. Memory consolidation is something. Can we go for another 10-15 minutes? Or?
थोड़ा एक्सेलरेटेड कर दीजिए कभी 10 मिनट में.
सर आप जहाँ बताएंगे मैं रुक जाऊंगा.
नहीं रुकना नहीं है, एक्सेलरेट बढ़ाना है, रुकना नहीं है.
So we keep on making memories all through our life, but it may happen that the system gets full. So at the end of the day, busy day, we feel that we are not able to comprehend anything more, and that's what. So we keep on learning, but after a time, after a point, we feel that we are not able to learn anymore, and that's where the sleep helps. During the sleep, there is a consolidation which is happening in your brain, and you are able to kind of consolidate your learnings, previous learning and the new learning, and then you are able to retrieve that better. So that's a kind of important role played by sleep. So otherwise, what happens? Many times students do that mistake that they keep on reading the whole night and morning में जाके probably everything goes wrong.
Better to sleep over
Right. So preserving memories is like so when we are sleeping, then we also do some kind of filtering. Uh, may like it lets the boring, inconsequential stuff gets thrown out. So we're also talking about synaptic pruning. So a lot of such memories which are not of any use, those get erased. So जैसे आपको शायद
बहुत सारी ऐसी मेमोरी जो डस्टबिन में चली जाती हैं वो रिस्टोर में भी कई बार आ जाती हैं
उनके साथ कोई इमोशंस एसोसिएटेड होंगी, दैट्स व्हाई यू आर एबल टू रिकॉल देम, अदरवाइज यू डोंट. सो जैसे आपको आज का ब्रेकफास्ट याद होगा आपने क्या किया, बट अगर आपसे पूछूं 10 दिन पहले का तो आपको बिल्कुल नहीं याद होगा. सो
Same thing.
There are 8, 5, 7 types of breakfast menus.
but if there is some special moment associated with some experience, then you remember that because there's some emotions associated with that. That's where the role of this little almond shaped body part, that was amygdala, which was coming in. So amygdala associates memories along with emotions, and that's what helps in cementing the memories in our brain.
इतनी रिसर्च जो है ये जीने का मजा खत्म कर देगी सारे इमोशन सारे आनंद जो है सारे इलेक्ट्रिकल इम्पल्सेस से डिसाइड हो जाएंगे और जीवन समाप्त हो जाएगा.
सर बस इस लेक्चर अभी खत्म होने वाला है थोड़ी देर में, उसके बाद हम सब कुछ भूल जाएंगे.
नहीं नहीं, इसके ऊपर बहुत चीजें रिजल्ट फाइनल का बड़ा डिस्कशन है. रिजल्ट फाइनल कहता है कि हम तो लोग कह देते हैं कि हम साइंटिस्ट लोग सब चीज का वो खत्म कर देते हैं that once you start understanding the world in better detail, you will see new beauty. तो आप एक लेवल की उसको समझते हैं, you will like the beauty in the pattern of the people who are as waves. This is the action potential. आप इसमें क्यों beauty is a question of appreciation of certain thing. आगे चलते हैं.
So optogenetics is one technique which is being developed, where what you do is you put some kind of light signal into your brain, and that helps in memorizing certain things. So it's a biological technique to excite neurons to bring arousal effect using light. Okay, it's still combines power, light, and genetics. So what happens is, this is a neuron where you are having some learnings, and you throw some light on this, then it gives you arousal effect, that emotional effect, and then it has some cementing that memory. So again, this is just, I'm just covering it as some work is already happening and people are finding positive results on this. Right. You use the right word. So जो वो कहे गए वो सब चीजें कहीं ना कहीं से निकल रही हैं.
I think this picture I saw a few days back in the
This one? This one?
No, that after genetics, this is बत्ती जल गई.
ये वाला?
Few days back.
So brain-computer interface is connecting brain nervous system, communication between brain and the other part. So you can connect your computer or robotic limb with some with brain. So implementations could range from non-invasive to partially invasive to invasive. So could be like EEG, we said like it's a non-invasive technology. Similarly, there are some technologies which are invasive. That means you need to put that interface inside your brain. So you need to do surgery and then put that over there. So BCI's examples could be like Sharma sir told that moving a kind of a cursor using my brain. So you have implanted something on your brain, and using that the device can kind of see what kind of movements you want to do. Similarly, at the University of Houston, they have also seen how by using these EEG kind of devices, you can control your artificial limb to lift some equipment. Who are the major players in PCI domain? MaxMind, Neural, BrainGate, ClearPoint, Neuralink. Neuralink is the one which is started by Elon Musk. Syncron and BlackRock Neurotech. BlackRock Neurotech is the which has been working for long. So this is the kind of which has done maximum work so far in this field. So here is what BlackRock technology looks like. It's like it has an electrode array and which can be kind of put inside the brain. So although it looks so small, but it has a lot of electrodes. And they have tested it already on more than 30 patients. So it works for 2 to 5 years. So this is how it looks like. You are putting a kind of something on your brain, and which can be connected with the external devices. So this is how it works. Synchron is the one other thing, and this is kind of a mesh. एक मैश की तरह से है which can be put in your veins. तो जैसे yes, so जैसे स्टेंट होता है हार्ट में जैसे पेस में सॉरी स्टेंट डालते हैं which goes through your veins. So similarly, the technology of stent rod is to be kind of taken to brain via the veins which are taking blood to your brain, and that's where it is pouring over. Others where you need to do surgery. So in this case, the surgery is very minimal. छोटा सा एक जैसे stent डालने के लिए होता है. So similarly, it can be kind of taken to your brain, and it doesn't require kind of the chances of rejection are less in this case. So this is considered to be one of the promising options for kind of handling patients of different conditions. So this is also being kind of tested on few patients, but the one which I showed you earlier, that has already been tested on number of patients. Neural lace, the culture is a kind of a frictional interstellar simulation, which basically talks about some next generation of people, and it says that neural lace is something which is going to be implanted in the humans of that culture, and it will grow along with them in that culture. Right. So this is something again, like this is part of this is just fictional. These are fictional novels. So neural lace, the name is coming from here, which is used by Neuralink. जो एलन मस्क ने जो अपनी कंपनी बनाई है, the kind of device they are developing, it is also like a mesh, एक छोटे से मतलब हाथ के ऊपर आ सकती है. They have named this as neural lace, and they say that they want to go beyond medical usages of BCI technology. They want to bring in augmentation, brain augmentation, and human enhancement by using the BCI technology. So cyborg basically is again something which is combination of cybernetic and organism. So you're trying to bring in technological enhancements on a human. Human being whose physiological functions are enhanced by artificial aids to the body. So originally proposed in 1960. It's a common theme in a lot of science fiction movies. And, so I can show there's some people who have already kind of undergone these kind of enhancements. So maybe
small one.
Let's think about the cybernetic future of human mankind. We could have brain implants that could improve memory or any kind of cognitive skills. We could have implanted magnets or RFID chips in our fingers to replace passwords and keys. We could have exoskeletons boosting our strength, or we could be faster, jump higher. So we could augment all different kinds of human capabilities. Let's see what kind of real-life cyborgs we know of today who might show a good example of where we should find the balance between using technologies in our body but remaining a human being. The first is Neil Harbison, who has a specialized electronic eye, rendering perceived colors as sounds on a musical scale. So it means it lets him hear color. He said it's not necessary to hack into the body to become a cyborg. We are all cyborgs already. He's an artist born with achromatopsia, or extreme color blindness, that meant he could only see in black and white. He's now capable of experiencing colors beyond the scope of normal human perception. Second is Dr. Kevin Warwick, who is a cybernetics professor in the UK's University of Reading. He has experimented with different electronic inputs since 1998, such as installing a microchip in his arm, which lets him operate lights, heaters, computers, and lights remotely. He and his work have become one. He's the founder of Project Cyborg, using himself as the divinity. His ambition to become the world's most complete cyborg. Number three is Jesse Sullivan, who became a cyborg when he got hit with a bionic limb, which was connected to nerve muscle crafting. Aside from having control over his limb with his mind, he can also feel temperature, as well as how much pressure his skin applies. Number four is Nigel Aiken. After losing a part of his arm during a birth accident, he got upgraded. His new arm has a hand that can independently move to quick, even delicate objects. He controls the arm through muscle movements in his remaining forearm. The range of movement is truly extraordinary. He can independently move each of his 5 fingers to grip delicate objects or even pour liquid into a glass.
So there are many more examples which I am not covering. I can share the link with all of you, and you can go through examples which are already kind of happening. So So there are new experiences which are possible. To tap directly into optic nerve to allow humans to see entirely new wavelengths of light, to see perfectly in nighttime by switching on your vision to infrared mode, to connect to the auditory nerve in order to play music directly to your brain. How crazy would it be to press play on your phone and immediately hear music without any earphones?
मेट्रो में बहुत काम आएगा तो लीड के थ्रू ले लेते हैं गाने से सबसे कम दिमाग में
Even in trains, they are free.
सर हम पीसीआई की बात कर रहे हैं, ये हाथ लगा के भी फोन बंद नहीं हो रहा।
तभी PCI चाहिए. Sorry about that. So, development of brain-brain interfaces, which will be able to translate thoughts, sensations, or impulses into digital signals that could be transmitted to another person. So, all these possibilities are being considered. This is future of learning. In Matrix, I think, so whosoever has seen this movie, the people used to learn something, or they used to just download certain kind of thing, and they were kind of get a new learning. So I'm sure I think you would have seen this. So I'm not playing that video. So accelerating the evolution, experts predict that in 20 to 30 years, brain implants will be just as common as acceptable as a cardiac pacemakers are today, potentially to completely transform the way
learn and experience. Mark Zuckerberg says that people will one day be able to share full sensory and emotional experiences rather than kind of just photos and videos. And Elon Musk says that people would need to become cyborgs to be relevant in an artificial intelligence age. Merger of biological intelligence and machine learning intelligence could be necessary to ensure that they stay economically viable. So, with all this, there are a lot of issues in terms of ethics and privacy as well. So, people rights, like I'm always worried, their mind could be by a cabin. So, there are a lot of things which are associated with these social and ethical implications. There's a video also talking, but I will kind of leave that. Now, I'd just like to quickly talk about, so this is kind of a very fast emerging technology area. There are a lot of government main initiatives which are happening. Like Canada has some, US has multiple, but one which are generating. The European Union has Human Brain Project in Japan, in China, Korea, then Israel, and Australia. So all these countries have different initiatives on the neuroscience front, and they are working on developing new technologies in this. Quickly talk about neuroscience education in India. So far, whatever my understanding has been that most of the neuroscience education in India is focused towards medical usages, and mostly about like neurosurgery and handling the neural disorders and so on. So they have degree and diploma courses in neuroscience, neurotechnology, in enhanced and Japan. So when we talk about neurotechnology here, it is mostly to use the equipment, not to kind of develop anything. So Neuroscience and Japan, these are some example, but there are a lot of other medical colleges which are offering courses in the neuroscience. NBRC Gurgaon, this is one center which is there, which is a national level center, which is offering MSc and PhD interdisciplinary courses in neuroscience. But at least I couldn't get very much detailed information from their website. So it's more like they're probably initiating it as a kind of interdisciplinary thing. Then there is a Center for Computational Brain Research, which is there at IIT Madras, and they offer a winter course. This is not a regular course, but it's a winter course on machine intelligence and brain research. So these are some places. Again, these are more focused on.
IIT Mandi has one.
Okay, so I couldn't
IIT
find.
Mandi is on PCI.
Okay. So probably I was not aware. I will check that. Then we have some beta courses in biomedical engineering and medical electronics, which are not focused on neuroscience, but these are general kind of medical engineering courses. So I would say like we are still at a very beginning stage as in India about both for the research and the education in terms of neuroscience. That's what I see as a situation. I had just one thought, should we kind of look at enhancing this awareness at our schools level? Like we have in our colleges, schools, we have different clubs. Can we introduce it as a kind of a neuroscience club? Like we have this club for say, like space, like they use mini telescopes and try to kind of bring in some kind of interest. Okay, some kind of interest gets invoked in the students, and that can be taken up further. So you are from educational field, so probably you can suggest. Do you see that this could be possible? It could be anyone from the schools. Yes, yes. How do you see, madam?
Yes, it can be. There's a lot of potential even for the children of being able to do the is one more field because space science में they are working. Neuroscience, even biology teachers, those who they don't have that kind of a sensitivity towards it. We need to train the students starting from class 6
Yeah.
to 8. We can share that.
Okay.
भारी नहीं होगा सर, बच्चे आजकल बहुत एडवांस हैं, उनका ब्रेन बहुत डेवलप है। सर कह रहे बच्चों के लिए, छठी के बच्चों के लिए भारी होगा, यानी कि बच्चों के लिए आजकल कुछ भारी
नहीं नहीं, ये तो how you present it is the issue.
हाँ,
See, there are two ways. One model, the Indian model is make everything look very difficult and not doable. The other is you make it very easy because every child has a brain and that's all that is there. So I think it's a good idea. We have to find a good strategy to move it. So according to me, the strategy will be find a set of people who are very active in schools and let them do one session. Make people aware of this and so on. So वो न्यूरोमिथ्स है, ये है, वो है, and then how this will benefit, and especially आज की तारीख में लोगों को career चाहिए. So the careers that are opening up is what is important, and what is more interesting is that the traditional medical education people will not be able to move in this. It is the new ones who understand physics, chemistry, biology all simultaneously will be the ones who will lead in this. So ये डॉक्टर कोई काम का नहीं है, वो कुछ नहीं करेगा. So it is quite easy. All we need is a set of people who have a presence in the school sector, and surely in one of my future sessions I'm going to talk about it. There is absolutely no doubt.
I think first thing would be to make an awareness around a program for the higher education people, then come to the school. Because basics have to be, here it is a little advanced level. Advanced level thinking is involved in the whole process, whatever you presented. That would work better with the medical colleges, work better with engineering colleges because it's a mix of these computers and other things. And then come to general, then awareness. Because at that level it's too young to really focus on these issues.
हाँ, राजेश कुछ कहना चाहते हैं.
On the last point that you have made, the presentation was rather lean on the educational aspects of cognitive neuroscience. There are huge amount of work that is happening in the cognitive neurosciences which has direct application to education. And if we can kind of orient that, say for example, especially how children learn when Madam was talking about. It's not about biology teachers knowing it. It's about the primary teachers knowing how the cognitive neurosciences looks at the whole development of learning happening in the students. So Edison Gopnik is one leading neuroscientist, cognitive neuroscientist who works on the issues of children.
अगर आपने देखा नहीं, उसका एक बड़ा छोटा वीडियो है हाउ बेबीज लर्न, एंड उस वीडियो में वो प्रूफ करती है कि चिल्ड्रन आर द R&D डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ ह्यूमैनिटी, ग्रोन अप्स आर मार्केटिंग एंड सेल्स.
शुरू में हम करते थे आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस में, कहते 2-3 साल से बच्चों से ही सीखिए. देयर आर नंबर ऑफ एग्जांपल्स हैव बीन देयर फॉर लास्ट 30-40 इयर्स. मैं सब एक की दो चीजें पूछना चाहता था आपसे जी. एक तो ये है कि आपने कहा कि पेड़ों में जानवरों की सेंस, ये तो जैसी बोस ने बहुत पहले एक्सपेरिमेंट किया वो, लेकिन एक्सपेरिमेंट कैसे होता था, मतलब उस समय इतनी एक्सपेंसिव भी नहीं कि
ये इलेक्ट्रोड लगा लोगों को
पता नहीं कैसे सस्ते हो गया था. जमाने में तो इतने महंगे नहीं थे.
100 साल पहले की बात है.
हाँ, तो वो जो है वो अगर वो कहीं किसी को जो रेंट करते थे पेड़ों को, कुछ होता था तो पेड़ सेंस करता था, चोट लगती थी तो पेड़ सेंस करता था. वो कैसे होता था, अभी इक्विपमेंट बन सकती है या नहीं बन सकती है मुझे मालूम है, लेकिन मैं अगर घर में बनाना चाहूँ इंस्ट्रूमेंट या स्कूल में करना
चाहूँ. आई विल शो यू वन वीडियो ना जो था, उसमें वही दिखाया गया. प्रॉब्ली आई विल शेयर दैट लिंक, आप उसको देखिएगा. उसमें वही है कि इफ आई जैसे छुई हुई है उसको जैसे हम छूते हैं
वो, लेकिन
टच मी नॉट,
कैसे करें,
टच मी नॉट जो है.
और दूसरे एक साथ हमारा कंप्यूटर साइंस में बहुत बड़े हुए हैं बंदे, एरिक एक्सपेरिमेंट का ओपन सोर्स में बहुत काम, तो उसकी उंगलियां बिल्कुल ही काम नहीं करने बंद हो गई थी कीबोर्ड पे. तो वो क्या इन MIT, तो 20-25 लड़कों को बिठा लेता था एंड बोलता जाएगा प्रोग्राम फुल स्टॉप कामा सेमीकोलन, उससे बहुत काम किया। उसका एक चीज कहना था जो मैं कहना चाहता हूँ, कहता अगर आपको अच्छा साइंस कंप्यूटर साइंस या एनी फील्ड, तो आपको 2-3 और चीजें आनी चाहिए, म्यूजिक या डांस। ये अगर आपके में आएगी तो यू विल बी बेटर। फॉर एग्जांपल भी देखिए, आइंस्टाइन बड़ी अच्छी वायलिन बजाते हैं, पेंटिंग्स भी उनकी बड़ी सुंदर है। अपने रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर, मेरे में वो कोई मुश्किल नहीं है, शायद इसलिए मैं ज्यादा पढ़ा नहीं पाता।
नहीं आप देखिए, हम लोग आइंस्टाइन की बात करते हैं, बट यू फॉरगेट दैट राजा रमन्ना वाज अ ग्रेट पियानो प्लेयर।
मैं यही तो कह रहा हूँ, हमें ये एबिलिटी भी स्टूडेंट्स में आनी चाहिए, बिकॉज़ इट एनहांसेस देयर कैपेबिलिटीज। परहैप्स आई डू नॉट
एक्चुअली मोस्ट हैव, इट इज पेरेंट्स हु से IIT की तैयारी करो, म्यूजिक डांस और
तो वो उनमें अपने आप थी या कि अब नहीं भाई, अब्दुल कलाम वो भी एक रुद्र वीणा बजाते थे ना, वो जो है उसका क्या ताल्लुक है मैं नहीं जानता।
सिलेबस में your person is trained with mind, ब्रेन इम्प्लांट अगर होगा तो उसका ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या होगा? कैन वी हैव a program where brain implant or putting some adjunct into the brain will lead to honesty of purpose in the mind, thereby cleaning up our political system completely.
बदमाशी करेंगे
नहीं तो इनकी भाषा में ये सब एप्लीकेशन सॉफ्टवेयर की बात है, वो भी बात कर रहा है हार्डवेयर वगैरह, which is the hardware. Now what operating system you create, what application software you create is what people.
What skills you want to bring in, what values you want to bring in.
सिलेबस तो बहुत बात की चीज है, पहले तो ये डेवलपमेंट
It's not already happened. जैसे हम स्कूल में क्लब्स की बात कर रहे हैं, probably creating a reference site would be useful. चाहे वो अपनी वेबसाइट पे बनाए या कैसे. So to collect all the references that you have shared, कि जैसे वीडियो में लिंक करना हो, we can probably embed this video itself.
I'm already working on that.
You are
basically
not only a website,
you
create a
talked
whole
about
program
the
of
philosophical
pursuing
news,
through this
but the issue is nowadays the issue is the brainwashing,
Are there any
brain
science fiction
indoctrination. These are becoming two close issues in terms of the various development in the world. Brainwashing has become a very important phenomenon.
So you was
When
science fiction
in a mass scale.
Human brains 50 years from now, 100 years from now.
Let me show you two news.
नहीं क्या my question
Science fiction novel.
Not only
Having
science
brain.
there are many of them. You
So there's a lot of fictional novels.
H.G. Wells का था.
जैसे मैंने वो बताया ना आपको, वो जो
actually this is a
the culture is basically Google a series of
novels about the brain, you will get a large number.
ये रमेश जी दिखा रहे हैं वीडियो.
this is a real news on science fiction. This MIT postdoctoral researcher, they created a Hogwarts like है, and it says that they can capture the person's brain activity and using machine learning to detect that what they are imagining in real time. And whatever you are thinking, the hack can capture. This is the image of that instrument. And similarly, this university is in Sri Lanka. There, the team, this is the team, they also created a hack. It was able to sort out, and the hack was capable of analyzing brain activity for various medical and scientific purposes. So things are going on.
So there are a lot of such work is happening where they are saying that if you are thinking, they will try to plot what you are thinking. So आप किसी figure के बारे में सोचें, किसी person के बारे में सोचें.
एक और मेरी ऑब्जर्वेशन है कि हमारा प्रोसेस शायद एक ही है दिमाग. कभी आप गाना सुने किसी ऑडियो कंसर्ट में, आंखें बंद करके सुने तो ज्यादा मजा आता है. आंखें खोलेंगे तो आपका दोनों सेंसेस चल रही है. मैंने ऑब्जर्व किया, आंखें बंद करिए, यू विल एंजॉय द
नहीं ये तो आपको स्टैंडर्ड
हाँ नहीं वही है सिंगल प्रोसेसर। अब वो प्रोसेसर दो काम कर रहा है तो यू आर नॉट एबल टू एंजॉय द म्यूजिक।
कॉन्सेप्ट किसका है?
हाँ वो तो नेचुरल, अगर आपको म्यूजिक नहीं पसंद हो तो। लेकिन मेरी एक डॉक्टर पान मेरी एक समस्या हो इससे रिलेटेड। समस्या हमारी ये है कि कोई भी नई चीज वेस्ट में आती है, वेस्ट में यूएस, हम उसके पीछे भागना शुरू कर देते हैं, तो पीछे वाला को छोड़ देते हैं, तो हम लोग जो है चूचू का मरबा बन के रह गए। तो एवरीथिंग न्यू कम एंड आई रिमेंबर फ्रॉम द डेज, ये हमारा ये क्या नाम था ये निक का नेशनल इंफॉर्मेटिक्स सेंटर,
हाँ एनआईसी,
शेषागिरी और एक वो सज्जन था, नाम उनका भूल रहा हूँ। ये वेरी यंग पीपल केम फ्रॉम टीआईएफ, आप जानते गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया। दैट टाइम आई वाज डूइंग माय पीएचडी, मेरे से 2-4 साल बड़े होंगे। हाँ तो वो रोज कोई ना कोई लेक्चर देते थे, हम सब जाते थे काफी। तो हम सोचते थे कि ये लोग जो बता रहे हैं ये कोई इनकी इन्वेंशन, मतलब है इनके एल्गोरिथम वगैरह है। फिर बाद में जब पता चलता था ये पिछले साल 2 महीने पहले किसी पेपर में आया, तो वो बना के बताते थे कि बहुत बड़ी चीज आ गई, तो हम उसी को ले जाते थे, चलो नई चीज है। तो आज नई चीज आई, कल दूसरी आई, देन वी जंप फ्रॉम देयर। तो हम लोग जो है
तो ये
हमारा जो
when I was an active physicist and I was in Canada, एक ने actually article लिखा था साइंटिफिक जर्नल में, we need a center for backward physics। सब लोग एडवांस फिजिक्स के चक्कर में वही करते हैं कि कूदते हैं लेटेस्ट टॉपिक, तो हम कोई पुराने टॉपिक को ठीक से समझने का काम करके हम लोग कुछ नहीं पा रहे हैं। तो उसने कहा we need to have a center for backward physics।
टेम्परामेंट है या हम लोगों की सोच है उसको कुछ आगे बढ़ नहीं रहे हैं। ये आता तो ये शुरू कर देते हैं, दूसरा आता तो हम बात पूछ जाते हैं। That's my problem.
नहीं that is
our education is the universe
problem, the complex of it. Complex in the
ठीक है,
sense
so
that
let me wrap up and then we continue our lunch।
what we want to make them to do. आज के सारा process जो है how to influence the masses, how to influence the brain of people, and then make them to act accordingly. through आपका business model में भी है और political model में भी है, in many other ways, and religious model में भी है। ये this is becoming
Business model very successful.
business model में भी है, economic model, this is becoming a very important topic for how to influence the masses in order to make them do certain things। और इसलिए ये analysis ज़्यादा जा रही है। अभी तो हम individual पे ज़्यादा focus कर रहे हैं। If you really ask them for the 5 or 6 or 10 years, this has been a major thing, and therefore people are working. How do you prevent this indoctrination? How do you prevent this mass influence? Although the media is causing it all mass influence. Whole media, Elon Musk, whole media is causing mass influence. तो signal कोई भेज रहे हैं जो आपके पसंद के है और then brainwashing कर रहे हैं। This is a way how do you prevent it? Check this thing. Contain your own thinking process.
So let us wrap this up and then we continue our lunch. And the first thing, of course, is to thank Dr. I mean, it's not Dr. Rahul Agarwal for putting together this thing, which is very interesting. And I just want to share with you a few thoughts, very brief before we go further. I'm an optimistic and a futuristic and a techno-futuristic techno-optimist. So I believe the last phrase that was written, next 20-30 years, this will be routine. We will not be talking. That's why today, you don't get excited if somebody says, वो pacemaker लगा है. In fact, airport में हर बार पूछा pacemaker तो नहीं लगा, ये तो नहीं है. So this brain-computer interface, etc. Same thing for testing. MRI आज आपको अजीब सा लग रहा है, मैं तो 2 बार MRI इतना करा चुका हूँ। उस दिनों में हर एक अपना बोलेगा मैंने MRI कराया था, ये निकला, वो निकला, नहीं निकला। जैसे कोविड के दिनों में सब ऑक्सीमीटर लेके चलते थे, वैसे हो जाएगा। एंड थोड़ा सा सोचिए, मैं ये सब काम में थोड़ा अपना टाइम जाया करता हूँ। बड़े बड़े राजा महाराजा मुगलों की सबकी तस्वीरें हम देखते हैं, किसी की आंख में चश्मा देखा था? When did चश्मा come into our life? A few hundred years ago. 300 मान लेंगे आप, कुछ मान, उसके पहले throughout humanity, there was no spectacles. So if now we get this digital neural this thing, it will be a small blip. करोड़ों साल तक कुछ नहीं था यार, एटलीस्ट हजारों साल तक नहीं था, 300 साल में चश्मा आया, उसके बाद हियरिंग एड आई, उसके बाद ये आया, ये आ गया. And 100 years from now, we will consider it routine. In fact, जिसका नहीं होगा, maybe there will be national missions कि भाई सबको दो, जिसके चिप नहीं लगी है, उसको चिप लगाओ and so on. And here we already, there is something called subcutaneous chip, जो स्किन के नीचे आ जाती है. वो ऑलरेडी यूरोप में लग गई है ना, स्कैंडिनेवियन कंट्रीज ये वो सब में there is no other idea. There is a subcutaneous chip and that takes care of some of these kind of things. My own thing on this is, and I will really thank Rahul Agarwal for having created this, that I got stimulated, and you know, I already developed my area for the next few years. Is quantum neuroscience. इस बीच में उसको गूगल करते करते मैंने अमेज़न में किताब भी ऑर्डर कर दी है क्वांटम न्यूरोसाइंस पे. April 14th को I will be doing session on quantum neuroscience because April 14th is World Quantum Day. So this is another thing I wanted to share, that हम लोग ऐसा ही सेशन अक्टूबर में करेंगे, नवंबर में करेंगे, दिसंबर में करेंगे. Dr. R.C. Sharma will organize with volunteers and others. January, February, March हम skip कर रहे हैं. क्योंकि now I am finding that more and more people are quite happy with the online thing. In-person meeting में attendance घटती जा रही है, कम हो रही है. January, February, March कोई ऐसा सेशन नहीं करूँगा, लेकिन April को करूँगा. Sunday, 14th April is World Quantum Day, and we will have a session on quantum. And now quantum neuroscience will be the latest topic on that. Quantum computing, quantum communication, quantum sensors, quantum devices, so already well established. We'll also talk about this. So we look for an exciting journey, and I have to thank the contributions of Professor Chandra and said this thing. क्योंकि अभी इधर का ना optogenetics, वो ऑप्टोजेनेटिक्स कैसे होती है, वो फोटोन जो है इलेक्ट्रॉन रिलीज करता है जो फोटो इलेक्ट्रिक इफेक्ट में होता है, और वो इलेक्ट्रॉन और इसकी वजह से बैलेंस बदलता है, तो जो डीएनए में हाइड्रोजन बॉन्ड है उनके क्रॉस टनलिंग होती है. अब बायोलॉजी वाले अभी ये नहीं समझते, उनके लिए जादू है, लाइट लगाई और जेनेटिक्स हो गया. बट वेरी सून यू विल सी अ फुल कंप्लीट दिस थिंग, बिकॉज़ जिन लोगों ने फोटो इलेक्ट्रिक इफेक्ट सुना है और जानते हैं, वो जानते हैं कि व्हेन यू शाइन लाइट, वर्क फंक्शन को ओवरकम करते हुए इलेक्ट्रॉन रिलीज होते हैं. इलेक्ट्रॉन रिलीज हुए, बाकी हाइड्रोजन एटम के साथ गए, कुछ होएगा ही होएगा. So it's a very exciting area, and that's why I said this is going to be the most important area for the future, and a convergence. And why I was talking about young people rather than the old people is they are in a better position to take on with all these things together. The elderly people, with all due respect to them, get frozen in their attitudes and models and so on and so forth. So we break here and go on for lunch and continue our discussion after lunch. Thank you, Rahul, once again.
Thank you, sir.
इतना बड़ा स्पेक्ट्रम किया कि अभी वो ध्यान ही नहीं आ रहा है. ये तो क्या होता है, वो आजकल तो वो आ गए ना, बड़े-बड़े स्क्रीन क्या वाले क्या कह रहा हूँ, मल्टीप्लेक्स. हाँ, नहीं दूसरा मैक्स, वो जो है बड़ा. हाँ, तो इधर देखो तो नजर नहीं आता, इधर देखो तो नजर नहीं आता, आज इन्होंने यही कहा.
So, sir, I think there is a famous quotation that the purpose of education is to make people think. So I hope I have been able to do that. So that was the maybe basic purpose. And I think एक group photo अभी.
हाँ, group photo तो प्रिय है.
अरे हमारे स्पेशल गेस्ट एक तो थोड़ा फिजिक्स वालों की तादाद बढ़ने से कॉन्फिडेंस बढ़ जाता है.
नहीं बैठे
हमने जो नहीं पढ़ा था वो पढ़ लेंगे. उसको भेज देना.
फिजिक्स में तो हमने
अजय पीछे, अजय खड़े क्यों? अजय